We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My first guest is my co-host, Dr. Hans Kugler, PhD, who is very influential in the field of anti-aging medicine. And it's a great pleasure to have Dr. Hans Kugler as my guest. Hans, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Happy to have you here. And so, for the guests who haven't tuned into Here's to Your Health before, what is the fundamental ideas that you teach to keep us healthy?
Well, it's not what I teach. It was basically research for many, many years by a very famous professor, Alabama University School of Medicine, Professor Emanuel Cheraskin. Right? He defined lifelong health, that means optimum health, how to achieve optimum health, as a state of homeostasis achieved by doing so and so many variables correctly. And all these variables later on, I did several research projects together with him, were combined as health practices. That means the more health practices you were doing correctly, the better was your health, the better was your overall lifespan. And all of these different variables are synonymous with fitness, sexuality, immune functions, best immune functions, longest lifespan, best recovery from disease, and so on and so on, right?
Like, so if you're saying if I do something as simple, if I exercise and eat carefully, those are two of the variables that I if I put into place, I will be healthier.
Right, yes. Definitely.
So it's very basic stuff that a lot of us take for granted.
Well, you see, but it's changed a little bit. Over the past years, we used to have exercise, nutrition, right, and so on. Nowadays, no, it's not nutrition in the second place. It's actually detoxing is in the second place, because several different research studies have shown that as we get older, we accumulate anywhere between 50 and 100 toxic chemicals in our body that actually interfere with immune functions, they are endocrine disruptors, and so on and so on. So the detoxing is the number two place, right? And then we have nutrition. And nutrition changed a little bit too. Yes, we go to the basics, quality nutrition and 3 regular meals and so on, and stay away from the sugars. But again, there with the sugars, more and more definitions in respect to what we can possibly do. And some of this comes from Professor Robert Lustig, Davis University in Northern California, all standard orthodox medicine. And strangely enough, a lot of these people that are coming out with very well defining science and health, they're actually somewhat, sort of be badmouthed by the overall orthodox medicine, right? Those are the people that want to keep selling you drugs. And interestingly enough, we did a little bit follow on that one, right? Because right now on this, with the drug problems, we have with younger people, not drug abuse like speed and this anymore. Do you know what the number one problem is? Actually, the children are raiding their parents' drug cabinets. They're grinding up whatever they're finding and sniffing it up their nose. It is so stupid. It's just unbelievable, right? And many people believe that there's a connection. Like imagine mama has the kids in the car or stops by at the drugstore. I'm just going to go in and pick up my drugs, right? And it's like in their heads, oh, mama, drugs, right? And so but it's not for you. And so it's psychological, right? This is what the kids are doing. But anyway, coming back to health itself, there's no other clear definition of lifelong health. means
Besides,
best possible
you
health
mean
than what
exercise.
Tarascan has.
Okay, so Manuel Tarascan, who is, you work with Manuel Tarascan.
Right, yeah.
So exercise, careful diet, and detox
Detoxing.
are three of the major components.
Right, environment, another one, right? Especially a section with nutrition. Right now we have genetically modified foods. It's a total disaster in the U.S. I mean, they're shoving this garbage down our throats at a rate that's just unbelievable. In Europe, all this stuff is outlawed. I mean, and they have to
In the
do-
European Union, the 15 industrialized nations, Germany, Sweden, France, England,
Right.
they have banned genetically modified organisms.
Many of them.
Right.
And if you want to get anyone on the market, you have to do very special tests. You have to prove that they're safe and so on and so on. Right? I mean, it is a total disaster in a way, what's happening over here. And, there was...
But excuse me, may I ask you a question? So by way of perspective, but the fact that Monsanto, who has these genetically modified organisms, holds patents on them, has been defeated in Europe, and American farmers cannot sell their corn or soy to the European Union, and I believe also the Japanese will not buy it. So then they are losing, they don't have customers. And so isn't it likely that genetically modified organisms will be defeated because
I
the rest of the
hope so.
world said, we don't want it, and that our farmers who have no axe to grind particularly,
Oh, yeah.
they just want to sell, they may not be paying any attention. So isn't it possible that indeed that'll be defeated?
We hope so. We are working on it.
Right.
I mean, there are many people that are really working on it. And actually, science supports that. There was one major finding very recently that actually should have probably woken up the people at Monsanto and say, hey, let's make a step backwards. See, when they harvest, for example, genetically modified corn, they harvest the corn and the stalks they leave on the ground, and the cattle feeds on the stalks, right? And guess what? They found in the blood of cattle. It's not the only observation that they did. Later on, they did some other animal experiments confirming the same thing. They found segments of the genetically modified DNA in the blood of the cattle. Now, this is an absolute no. This should not be, right? And interestingly enough, how all this interferes and overlaps with other health practices, guess what? Weight exercises apparently are very much positive in stimulating your body's responses in handling or preventing the effect of those genetically modified foods on endocrine functions.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And in other words, you mean weight training. Right. So
Right.
lifting weights or using weights.
And it's not really lifting weights, or power stuff. No. I mean, when you go to a modern gym today, you find about 50 to 100 different machines, right? And you pick the ones that you want, and you normally focus on upper body, middle, legs, right? Upper body, maybe 3, 1 for the middle, 1 for the legs, and you keep doing this. And there are some very new findings again. If you do the new type of exercise, is called a supercircuit. That means instead of sitting for half an hour on a bicycle for my cardiovascular, I just sit on one of those pedaling machines for a few minutes. I have my hands on the handles. I see on the screen what my heart rate is. I bring my heart rate up into the right range. It takes about, 4 to 5 minutes. And then I immediately go to the resistance machines, right? And the resistance basically weight machines, right? And there's anything, I mean, from the butterfly machines to the bench pressing to very simple hand, you kneel on a bench, you lift the weight, or, sit-ups with a little bit some weight on your chest. I mean, you just talk to an instructor, And if you do that, you get much better results. And they have been summarized by a Professor Jack Wilmer from Texas University, basically saying, summary, when it comes to resistance exercise and circuit training, he's saying we're seeing results beyond belief in terms of body shaping, weight loss, and so on and so on. And as a matter of fact, in my things, we've talked about this before a few times, I always had a little bit of problem with weight. I really had to watch what we're doing. I mean, it goes back to my childhood. You know what my mother called me in Germany? He called me der Dicke. That means the round one, right?
Anything your mom made, you ate. Was that it?
That's right. That's right.
Seems
And really, I really had to watch it, right? I mean, later on, getting involved in this, in the health movement and so on, having access to laboratories and tests and so on, I keep track of it. I really had to watch it. Well, then I started doing that super circuit. Thank you, God, whatever. A good friend of mine is an Olympic trainer, and he was one of the very first people to introduce that to the big sports teams. Like every sports teams out there, I mean, basketball, football, you name it, they're doing the super circuit training, developed by Dr. Paul Ward, very famous Olympic trainer. Now, I started doing this, and I go to an A4M meeting, American Academy Anti-Aging Medicine meeting, right? I mean, one of the biggest ones now, and they always have the meeting in December, right? I mean, we'll have an
in Las
Vegas, right? Worldhealth.net. And making my rounds in the exhibit floor, and they say, oh, Dr. Kugler, we have a new method of measuring body fat and so on. Well, body fat is normally the best way to measure it is underwater weighing, right? Anything else?
I didn't know that. How do I measure body fat?
Underwater weighing, right? You sit on a chair, just in your swimsuit, and they submerge you, and that gives the best results.
Oh, I did not know
in
that.
percentage of body fat, right?
They do that in the military?
No, I mean, they've been doing this forever, literally, in sports. And then they tried everything, electrical impedance, electrical current through skin and so on, but it wasn't really very precise. But anyway, more and more, they're combining different methods. And I said, well, okay, fine, do it. And they hook me up and they measure it. And everybody says, hey, come here, look at this, the data. My body fat was as low as 10.7%. I mean, this is too low, right?
Oh, really?
And I'm really amazed because I'm really feeling good. I mean, I'm really feeling good. I'm humming along after all my accidents and everything else. And, this is just a very small group of people that we normally meet, and everybody knows everybody. I mean, sometimes a little bit, they make fun of you or whatever. Anyway, I walk down the aisles of an exhibit floor, and somebody comes here, Hans, eat. They bring me some food, right? And so on. So a lot of
because your body fat was too low in their opinion?
Right. So, let
me ask you a question. You were a fighter pilot for Germany in the 60s. You flew for NATO.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Now, weren't they involved with fitness then? I mean, didn't they train those pilots?
Yes, but for a different reason, right? Like, for example, if you flew a jet during that time, the biggest problem was if the hydraulic goes out, you had to be strong like an ox to wrestle this airplane. Otherwise, no other way but push the button and get out of this thing, right? And so what we did was in the evening, beyond the regular training, I took some of my fellow pilots to the gym and we did heavy bench pressing weightlifting, right? But that was for that reason. It wasn't really for health. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, years ago, it was actually believed that heavy weightlifting was not really good because it strengthened left atrium walls. It thickened left atrium walls, right?
That was that true?
Yeah. And they thought, well, that couldn't really be good. Oh. But then later on, again, when I had my car accidents and my left atrium found out was really bubbled out, Dr. Paul Ward reminded me of that. And that was one of the key things in bringing me back to the normal stage, right?
The fact that you had spent your adult years weight training.
Uh-huh. Right. And so anyway, we applied a lot of these things. Yeah, we've talked about this before. But coming back to the overall definition of health, lifelong health is a state of homeostasis achieved by doing so and so many health practices correctly. Mm-hmm. The more health practices you do correctly, the more it adds to the bottom line, your overall state of health. Like if you go, for example, to the internet or anywhere else, and you Google achieving optimum health, or what is optimum health? I mean, you will get the strangest definition. Well, the health is an absence of disease. Well, right, big deal, right? And so on. It was only then when Professor Cheraskimov...
Well, that seems like a fair definition, does it not? Is that a good definition?
Well, yeah, it is a good definition, but what does that show me about how to achieve optimum health, right? I mean, there's nothing really in there that tells me you can achieve optimum health by doing this and this and this and this, right? Yeah, yeah, there's one definition that basically said it goes into different Oriental medicines, right, philosophy and thinking and so on, but not really the down-to-earth A, B, C, D, E, right, which we did with Professor Taraskin. And that was really the interesting part. And more, I think, is really important because nowadays our healthcare system is just a disease management.
Right.
Or what it is, you go to a doctor, what do you have? Here's a prescription, take a drug. Mm-hmm. Well, none of these drugs really have shown to reverse, to really actually cure a disease. Huh? I mean, it started about 150 years ago when they discovered their penicillin. Right, this is about the only thing. You have the clap, yeah, okay, take some antibiotics.
Yeah, but for infection, then, of course, antibiotics do help. For infection, if you step on a rusty nail, antibiotics save your life.
Right, sure.
And if you have a sexually transmitted disease, then the antibiotics are helpful too, are they not?
Sure, yeah.
So they're good for some stuff.
But see, this is only a minute fraction of the whole healthcare business.
Right.
So they immediately assumed, well, you know what it means when you assume you make a blank, blank, blank out of yourself, and et cetera, right? They assume that there must be a drug for every disease. And that's when medicine went downhill. Right. They have been trying to prove that and show that, and the drug companies, they are so stubborn, and their drug companies are buying out medical schools, and their research is made just to prove whatever new drug they have, right, any possible advantage, but it's just disease management. Right. It's not curing diseases. Dr. Ron Klotz is everywhere on the internet and so on with big videos, and everybody else is coming in there. I mean, all the different people that we had on the show here, right, Dr. Gregory Smith and so on. It doesn't really show you how to achieve optimum health. And on the other hand,
that's a fair criticism. That's fair.
Right.
Yes.
And if you're trying to plug the drugs into this picture or the definition of lifelong health by Professor Taraskin, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It just doesn't fit. I mean, it's like a mathematical equation that doesn't give you anything because you're plugging the wrong things in there. Okay? Well, logically, you would say, well, maybe we have a problem. We should do something about that. Oh, no. Oh, definitely no. Those special interests, the drug companies, they're going to keep pushing their stuff onto us until we gag and blah, blah, blah. You know.
Well, actually, I think that's true. And if I could let's say some of our listeners are listening to your presentation, they might think, oh, that Dr. Hans Krugler seems a little bit of an extremist. But let me just point this out by way of historical context. We do not have lead in gasoline anymore. We do not have lead in paint. We took it out. But the people who manufactured lead additives, which they used in gasoline, for 20, 30 years were able to keep it in gasoline, even though the science showed that lead was a problem. So the people who earned money putting it in product had the clout to keep it there. So sometimes we have science, which is good, but it collides with commerce, and sometimes the commerce pushes people around. So by way of perspective, I believe your ideas are correct, and we see that historically, yes, lead in gasoline, everyone agreed was a problem, but it took 20, 30 years, extra years to get it out.
Exactly, and it is such a small step in respect to medicine. Okay, there were many different studies recently, publications, because somebody said, well, the U.S. is number 52 in the world in overall ranking of health, right?
Which is not good.
And so naturally, medicine didn't do that. So they did 8 different studies.
Who did?
And then different medical organizations, World Health Organization, there was a couple of other people in there. And it comes out the U.S. is anywhere from dead last, quote unquote, to number 37 in the world, outranked by number 52 in the world, and so on. Well, yes, instead of doing something about it, the drug companies do their own studies. And guess what they did? They picked only the top 17 nations and plugged the U.S. in there too, maybe in the hope that they can say, well, the U.S. is only number 15 or something like that, right? Or maybe even better. Well, the bottom line came out again when they plugged it. The U.S. is dead last, with leaving everything. I mean, there's no question about it, and they're not doing anything about it. That's the real problem here. And that goes into cancer and goes into every area. They are so stubborn in wanting to make their money. And it's not only this field, it's the environment, right? I mean, right now, a few days ago, we had a big report, intergovernmental report on the environment, where thousands of researchers from all over the world, I mean, the European Science Associations, from NASA to everybody else, and they all came up with the same report, basically saying we are at this point, we have to make changes right now, or we're going to go downhill so fast. We've got to do something. And there's actually MIT researcher, Professor Dan Nocera, a little genius. Well, I can say that because he's a chemistry professor like me, right?
Good, that's good. Well, good. Yes.
Anyway, and he was at MIT. He now received a tremendous big grant. He is now at Harvard University, has about 50 people. And the bottom line is, and that's what the oil industry, the coal industry, nobody really likes. He says, give me sun energy with solar panels that produce electricity and 2/3 of the MIT swimming pool in water, and I will run the entire world on it. And the data are there. I mean, Google him. Or go to our website, right? I mean,
he's not being laughed at. They're just trying to ignore him.
No, he's getting more and more attention. I mean, he is being one of the key people developing it, and he is a chemistry professor. He knows what he is doing, and the research data that they found, it's just so simple.
So that's hopeful then, for sure. Mm-hmm. It's hopeful.
Oh, totally. But see, again, the energy producing special interests, they are actually. He was listed as a suspicious person by previous administrations, right? I mean, how could he be against oil company and coal and all that stuff, right? I mean, it's absolutely magnificent.
They don't want their money interfered with.
Right.
So I'm certainly agreeing with you, but obviously they don't really care. They don't want their money interfered with. Now, you mentioned when we talk about food and exercise and detox. So in my mind, what does detox mean? Does it mean I take a shower at night? Does it mean I move my bowels every day? What does it mean to detox the body? How can what's the current thinking on detoxing the body, and what do I get when I do that?
Okay. To give you a really good example along those lines, years ago when the government got involved and was telling younger people about drugs, just say no, right?
Okay. Say no, right.
So the basic idea was when they had kids who were doing drugs and they got them together and they tried to just get to their heads, just say no, just don't do the drugs. Well, there was Narconon, anti-drug counseling, and they were basically saying no, it doesn't work this way. Drugs form metabolites that stay in your body that make you do it, and you've got to get them out of your body. And they developed the top detox program. And it very simply is, you take about 1.5 grams, you build up to 1.5 grams of niacin.
Niacin, the B vitamin.
Right. Now, the one that makes your skin prickly, etc.
So niacin gives you skin flush.
Right. So you've got to be really careful along those lines, because if you're really taking too much niacin at a certain time, it makes your skin prickly, and people have run to the emergency room for it.
Right, they don't know. Yes,
even so, it's relatively harmless. Well, anyway, at that time, they were building up over several months to 1.5 grams of niacin per day. In the meantime, we found that non-flushing niacin, which you can buy at any health food store, right? You can take 1.5 grams, that's basically 3 500 milligram tablets, capsules, and then you go to the gym, you do some exercise, and once you're doing with the exercise, it's better for the overall approach if you're doing some exercise because it increases circulation and so on in your body. Okay, and then you sit in the sauna and you sweat. And that niacin causes a turnover between lipids and fats into the blood back and forth, and it carries some of the drug metabolites and also other toxic chemicals into the blood, and the skin, generally acknowledged as your second kidneys, right? It will come out. So the bottom line here, we had two approaches. The one is just say no. And the other one, yes, do the niacin with it, do a detoxing. Well, guess what? The bottom line is, when you looked at the statistics, the effect of just say no, it was maybe 12%, and that's even questionable, right? Because when you have a low number like this, one or two people different can make a heck of a difference, right? So a measly 10 to 12%. Well, when you included the detoxing in that, the success rate went up to close to 80%.
Wow.
And that really...
And it's non-toxic, too.
Right. And that started the whole thing, right? And then the same people knocking on, they were looking at, they actually have an...
What, knocking on is what group again?
Well, it's a Foundation for Advancement in Science and Education. They have a research branch where they actually had a big international meeting on that, right? And I attended, and I met a lot of the people. It's very interesting. Well, they took this a step further. And they got permission from people as we get older to do take samples, lipid fat samples out, analyze them, and they use the equipment called the mass spec. Now, mass spec is sort of the king, the emperor of all the analytical machines. It's very expensive, but it gives magnificent results. And also...
What's the complete term for it?
Mass spectroscopy.
Okay.
Right? And the analysis done with mass spec is very precise. It is absolutely magnificent, but it's expensive. I mean, it really is expensive. I mean, they put money in, you wouldn't believe it. But then they also got to people who had, let's say they got permission from older people who had died in accidents or whatever to take a look at adipose tissue. And they found that as we get older, we accumulate anywhere between 50 and 100 toxic chemicals in our bodies. And they affect anything from endocrine system to immune functions and so on. So you've got to get that stuff out. So the number one advice for me out there, for everybody out there, get a way to get access to a sauna. That can be with your doctor, who very often have the infrared saunas. That really works very well. Any health food has this and so on. Go to your local health food store, get yourself some non-flushing niacin, right? And even if you don't belong to a health club, as long as you have access to a sauna, do a little bit, some exercise, half an hour, then you sit in the sauna and you sweat. And if you do that, within 6 weeks of doing that twice a week, you dump about 2/3 of those chemicals from your body.
Wow.
And that is an area
that seems easy to do, too.
Yeah. And that is an area that very much now also goes into cancer, the area of cancer, right? Because with cancer...
Actually, Dr. Guo, you have to hold that thought. We're going to have to take a short break. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Transmedia Network. I'm your host, Josh Lane, speaking with Dr. Hans Kugler. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hey everyone, this is Richard Carr, Business Relations Manager for LA Talk Live. Did you know social media produces almost double the marketing leads of trade shows, telemarketing, direct mail, or even pay-per-click ads? And that about 46% of all online users count on social media when making that ever-important purchase decision. Hey, if you feel lost when it comes to social media, Top Tier Media can help you. Top Tier Media specializes in social media management and blogger outreach for beauty, fashion, health, and lifestyle brands. To learn more, go to www.toptiermedia.com. That's www.toptiermedia.com. Top Tier Media, the official social media marketing company of LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to the Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network, and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My next guest is the president of SUFU, Superfoods, Kyle Mundy. Grains and beans in package form, very lovely. New company down from San Francisco. Kyle, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, what was the genesis of the idea to make these products?
Well, the inventor-founder, which I am not, but he was introduced to Mediterranean food of grains, or I should say white rice and lentils. And he's an inventive type, and he enjoyed it, but thought, you know what, this could be a lot better. It could be a lot better for you and taste a lot better. So he started blending lentils and brown rice, and that's kind of how the idea came about. And then from there, we took it a step further, adding what it's become today, which is a 9-ingredient blend, 3 different types of lentils, black, green, and brown lentils, which provide a lot of protein, 6 grams of protein per serving, and then 5 different types of super grains, and that includes wheat berries, rye berries, buckwheat, barley, and oats, steel-cut oats, and then long grain brown rice, which in those ingredients, they give you a lot of fiber and a lot of other nutrients. So that's how we got to the product we are.
So these are all variations on a theme. They all contain the wheat, the rice, the lentils.
They all contain the 9-ingredient base, the 9-ingredient blend, all certified organic, grown here in the U.S., and we're very excited. We were just verified non-GMO, which ties into the conversation you were having with your last guest.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, if they're organic, then by definition they're non-GMO. They have to be.
Well, yes, and that's some education with the consumers. But without that non-GMO verification, we find that it doesn't translate. So,
in other words, consumers these days want to see it on the label.
Correct.
And
right.
God bless them, I completely agree with that.
Right.
I think there's a much more consciousness, or maybe I should use the word understanding, about food now as a healing tool.
Absolutely.
And people really, they want to see it on the label, and they understand what it is, what they need to look for.
Yes. Yeah, they're demanding it. It just adds that extra peace of mind. Like you said, if it's 100% USDA organic, it really goes without saying, but it just adds that additional peace of mind.
So the SUFU beverages, not beverages, but these are meals in a package, and I can use these for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, that's really what sets it apart from the other grain products on the shelf, is that you truly can eat this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Have it like oatmeal for breakfast, throw it in soups or salad for lunch, and have it as a side dish for dinner, or by itself. Our biggest customer to date is probably vegans and vegetarians, because
What's a vegan?
Well, vegan is someone that doesn't eat any products, animal products, any meats or dairy products.
So your products have yours are vegan?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, we really like to say, it's farm to table. It's all plant-based, all whole grains and whole lentils.
And who is the founder again of the company?
Founder is an interesting guy who was actually the inventor-founder of Sky Vodka. And
Sky Vodka.
Sky Vodka, yeah,
I
the
see,
blue bottle vodka, and a lot of people say, well, that.
So he got religion and decided to do this also. I'm not to cast aspersions, but okay.
Right, right. Well, what a lot of people don't know about Sky is the reason he invented it was to be the first spirit that didn't give you a hangover. He would enjoy, like anybody, an adult beverage from time to time, and he wanted to know why he didn't feel good in the morning.
Well, alcohol's ethanol, isn't it? Ethanol's a cardiotoxin.
Sure. So if you drink enough of anything, no matter what, it's going to give you a headache.
Okay.
But he found that it was actually the impurities in the alcohol that really was what was giving
I
people
see.
headaches. And so...
what kind of impurities?
Well, he has... I can't pretend to know a lot about it. I'm not an expert in it, but he's found a way of taking out those impurities through filtration and distillation. And now many vodka companies use that process.
Oh, I see. Because of him, he kind of knows he pushed things forward.
He did.
Made a better product.
He helped
for everyone.
revolutionise
Oh, that's good. I
the
did not know.
industry. So,
And
So,
when did that actually happen?
oh, this was 25 years ago now.
Oh, I see.
when
Okay.
The invention of Sky was
And vodka's made from potatoes, is it not?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is a tie in that it's making something that had existed before better, and better for you. And that's really, again, the story of Sufu is so many people and so many cultures, white rice is really the base of their diet.
Yes.
And white rice is processed. I mean, it's processed to keep it lasting longer, to keep bugs and rodents from eating it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but the reason the bugs and the rodents don't eat it is that they know instinctively it's not good for them. So we're happy to be part of, and I say, part of, we're certainly not pioneering, but part of the revolution that the doctor was speaking to. Other countries are far ahead of us, European countries, in understanding what's in their food and knowing what they're eating, and really taking charge and making sure that what's on their plate is healthy for them. And I see that change happening right now. For me, I'm excited to be in this industry. I think it is a time of revolution.
Yeah, there's enormous growth. Enormous. I think it's a positive thing. Enormous growth. Americans and others, of course, around the world want cleaner, healthier food, and that's just really happening. That's just really happening. It's very remarkable.
Demanding it, absolutely. So we're happy to be part of that and growing, and I think that's a testament too to this change. Is that our growth. I mean, it's I'd love to say the product sells itself. It doesn't, because you have to educate people about it.
Right.
But once people try Sufu, where we've been able to introduce them to it either in the store or in a public event, I'd say 4 to 5 people love it. So we've had very good buy-in.
And how do I use it for breakfast? What's the story for breakfast? It's a hot breakfast or something like that? Or?
Well, you cook this just like you would brown rice.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do, and it's a great thing about myself, everyone on our team, is we actually genuinely love the product. So, but I'll make a big batch of it over the weekend or in the beginning of the week, because you cook it just like brown rice. So it does take 35, 40 minutes to cook.
Right.
And then I'll eat it throughout the week. It stores very well in the refrigerator
Sure.
or freezer, and literally I'll eat it just like oatmeal for breakfast. Put it in a bowl with some cranberries, maybe some cinnamon, honey.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's delicious.
And then also I could use it as a side dish if I'm going to have salmon for lunch. I could have salmon and Sufu.
Absolutely.
Or I could have chicken at night and Sufu or something. Rather than have a baked potato, I could do these as a grain beverage.
That's right.
And these are high fiber and rich in B vitamins.
Yes. Yeah. High in protein, 6 grams of protein per serving, so also good from a weight management perspective to keep you full longer. Lots of fiber. That's good for lots of reasons, antioxidants and so forth. In fact, one of the other audiences that we look at for this product is athletes, people who are looking before an event, before a game, looking to get that fill, that carb load, as they call it. Why eat white rice or white pasta for that carb load? Why not, eat something that's healthy for you and provides other benefits?
A certain percentage of athletes do get it, do get the food thing. Some athletes no, but more athletes these days do get it than don't get it. And they recognize the difference between a complex carbohydrate like these products and simple carbs like soda,
Right.
which is a bad choice for all of us and certainly a bad choice for athletes. And do you have baseball players and football players who are actually kind of using this, people you've contacted?
We have tried contacting. We'd like to get more, but we're a young company.
Yeah.
So we're starting to make noise and starting to get recognized, but it's a day
And by the-
regular, I think.
Where are these? Where can I buy these? Where now?
Absolutely. So growing, we're now nationwide, sold
Oh.
across the country, and a lot of fine natural food grocers, including Sprouts.
Oh, right.
Select Whole Foods, Safeways, and recently added Albertsons as well.
Oh my goodness! So you have national distribution. Well, that's good. That's good because that's great. And can I ask, what do they retail for roughly?
The packages in front of you right now, it's a 6-ounce size. And they retail for $3.19 to $3.49.
Seems very reasonable.
And then we have a larger size, a 1 pound, that retails for about $4.49. So
And again, so you're in Sprouts, you're in Albertsons, you're Safeway. So
Yeah.
national distribution. And how can I contact you directly? What's the website?
www.soofoo.com, SOOFOO.com.
And Sufu for superfood. Is that it?
That's right.
Super. Okay.
That's exactly it.
Well, that sounds real good. Well, Kyle Mundy, thank you for being guest today, and here's to your health.
Josh, thank you.
Thank you very much. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hi, this is Susan Levin, owner and founder of Speaker Services, inviting you to join me and co-host Jean Noel Bassiar on Monday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific, for our new show, Talk Up Your Business, Speak Your Way to More Profits. We'll be talking to you about how to use your expertise to grow your business or service through speaking. Our expert speakers and author guests will share their stories and success secrets with you. Don't forget to tune in to Talk Up Your Business Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hello, this is Angela DeJoseph. Join me Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific for the Angela DeJoseph Show. Join me as we venture into health, wealth. We're going to give you news, interviews, and entertainment. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, Live 365, Radio Flag, TiVo Radio, and now live on Facebook. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My guest is Dr. Hans Kugler, the co-host on the show. And Dr. Kugler is very well known for his work on anti-aging medicine, a PhD in chemistry from Stony Brook, one of America's best science schools. And the conversation, this segment, is going to be about the non-toxic approaches to cancer, and there are many. Dr. Kugler, welcome to the show.
Well, it's always a pleasure being back here. And, last time when we talked a little bit about that approach, we focused basically on optimum general health, right?
Yes, right.
Lifelong health, defined as a state of homeostasis, achieved by doing so and so many variables correctly. Those were the health practices, anything from nutrition to exercise, detoxing environment, and so on and so on.
Right. Those are the components that keep us healthy.
That's right.
And that's scientifically verified.
Definitely.
Yes.
But earlier people used to say, well, health practices, that really has nothing to do with real aging. No, it is not so. In the meantime, we've shown that at the end of your DNA molecules, you have those little extensions. They're called telomeres, right?
Telomeres.
Every species has them. And humans have about 54. And every time when a cell divides, it chops off one of those cell divisions. They get longer, they get shorter and shorter. And the bottom line, if you wouldn't kill yourself with smoking or anything else or the wrong drugs, or whatever. Anyway, that would be a maximum lifespan of about 110 to 120.
And for us as humans, theoretically, our maximum lifespan is 110 to 120.
That's right.
That's
right.
scientifically verified.
All the 54 subdivisions of the telomeres. But interestingly, this goes very much into the philosophy about life and God, and is there a force out there, generating force, and so it's very interesting. Because the question is really, is it all by accident or is a system to it? And the more and more you look into it, like me, you go higher and higher, and you finally get into this genetic material, the DNA and RNA, and gosh, it's so complicated. How can you make? And the more you work with it, the simpler it gets. I mean, in the DNA, that whole DNA structure, if you take subunits and you classify each subunit as a letter, you can basically define the whole universe, the whole body, with 4 letters. Really? Totally define it. I mean, it's absolutely magnificent. But anyway, when you do that and you look into the health practice, you find that health practices, or good health practices, are actually true anti-aging modalities.
Health practices are anti-aging modalities.
Right, good health practices are because cigarette smoking is considered as a health practice, as a faulty health practice.
A faulty health practice, one that really costs you. I mean, everyone agrees to that now.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Anyway, and a big example along those lines is several years ago, some friends called me and it says, we have a good friend of ours. He's a German-American. He's a German-Russian wrestler and a big guy and very successful businessman. And he wound up in the doctor's office and he has cancer. Could you talk to him? Well, the man had prostate cancer, fully metastasized, 180 spots all over his body.
And he had 180 cancer spots throughout the body.
Right. You can do this. You can demonstrate it with what they call a bone scan, right? So anyway, I felt like, God, what do you want me to do with this guy, right? I mean, he's a goner, right? I mean, that's obvious. Well, he comes to our health center in Torrance, Dr. David Wong, MD, right? And we have several people working there.
What's the name of that health center?
Health Integration Center, right?
In Torrance, California.
Right. Dr. David Wong. He was on the show
Dr.
here
Wong,
with me
yes.
too. Right. A very sharp cookie. But anyway, so he comes over there. It turns out he's a very aggressive guy. I mean, very strong. I will do anything. There must be anything better. I asked my doctor, he gave me 2 months to live, and I asked him, don't you have a treatment for this? And he says, yes. Radical orchiectomy, that means cutting off everything male.
Orchiectomy, cutting off the genitals.
Right. Yeah. Everything and chemotherapy, and we will increase your lifespan by 20%. But 20% of 2 months for all this ain't worth it, right? So anyway.
Doesn't seem to be worth it, no.
Okay, now, because, see, on the one hand, we have the definition of lifelong health as a state of homeostasis, which involves also environment. So what you do is, when you go through the basics of a person who has a medical problem, you're trying to pinpoint what's wrong with the basics, right?
Yes.
And so on. And we found out that he had a very successful businessman. He worked with government, with other people in making high-pressure containers for chemicals, for chemical substances, for all kinds of things. So as he described his work, it really became clear that he was subjected to lots of chemicals. And obviously those chemicals were in his body. They are suppressing his immune function. That's pretty well established, right?
So
and
you felt the chemicals could be suppressing his immune function.
Right. And that's therefore bringing on the cancer, right? And it turned out he went to a doctor. He also followed pretty bad health practices. I mean, like every night, Alpine Village, with his buddies. And
he wasn't good with himself.
No, that's right. That's right. I mean, he's a big guy. He could do anything, right? And so he's having fun with his friends and drinking, etc.
Now, excuse me, on a very basic level, isn't alcohol linked to mouth cancer, throat cancer, stomach cancer. I mean, isn't alcohol linked to many types of cancers?
Right.
And is alcohol not ethanol? Is not ethanol a cardiotoxin?
Totally.
So really, alcohol is not a plus for us.
Oh, definitely not.
I'm not saying it's not a social bridge, but really, health-wise, it's a bad idea, is it not?
And in essence, yes, a drink occasionally, yeah, fine, maybe two, especially when it comes to wine, like red wine with all the ingredients, and there's some positive things about it. But really, when you go to extremes, it really is bad. Alcohol is bad for you. I mean, no question about it. Well, anyway, he wound up in a doctor's office. They did a bone scan, right? They give him some very small amounts of some radioactive material that is being picked up by anything cancer, and you see it looks like an X-ray, the scan of the entire body, and he had about 180 spots of cancer, right? Okay, what to do? Now, it turns out that he was working with those chemicals, and obviously the very first thing was he has obviously an tremendous amount of these chemicals in his body that suppresses immune function. The connection was very clear. I'll do anything. I will do anything. I mean, this is ridiculous, and I can do anything, and so on. Well, that's very good if you have that in a patient, right? So I explained to him the importance of the detoxing, right? The sauna, detox sauna. He picks up his cell phone. He calls his work. He says, in my house, there's a sauna. It doesn't work. It's now 2:30. I'll be home by 5 o'clock. It will work by then. Go. That's the way he did everything else. I mean, when he came home, he actually borrowed from us some non-flushing niacin, right? He took it when he went home. He did some exercise in the sauna and sweating it out. Bottom line, within 2 weeks, he was out of the wheelchair. He went into the sauna doing the exercise there, sweating it out. Within 6 weeks, he was walking up and down the Palos Verdes Hills with weights on his arms and legs. He was getting better and better. He was following health practices, 100%. I mean, this guy was the ideal patient. Well, it kept going better and better and better, and 6 months later, we do another bone scan at Torrance Memorial Hospital. See, I go there with the patient because when you do the bone scan, it depends where the cancer is. You sometimes, turn that patient a little bit more to the right or to the left or whatever. You can see really what's going on. Well, the bottom line was within 6 months, he was 85% reversed. 85% reversed. He was feeling good. He was going strong, right? And every time when we did another bone scan test, he was a little bit better. And it was after 3 years that Torrance Memorial classified him as clear. And we presented that cancer history at the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine meeting in, I believe it was in 2001. Or something like that. He sent me another friend of his. There was a lawyer. God forgive me for saving a lawyer's life. Anyway. No, I shouldn't be that nasty.
Okay.
But anyway.
We'll allow a few lawyers jokes. No problem.
I had some
problem.
experience with lawyers that weren't really that great. But anyway. So this was an attorney who already had a couple of spots, very few, only 2 or 3 spots on his bone scan. He followed the same approach with a very conservative doctor, did another bone scan, and it showed clear. Well, he showed me the bone scan, and I called his doctor, and this doctor, oh, come on, this is nonsense. There's something wrong with the machine. He hung up on me.
Right.
Okay? Well, they did another bone scan, and again, it showed clear. Now I respect this doctor because he calls me back, and he says, what the heck did you guys do with this guy? I've never seen anything like a reversal of cancer, right? And we get more and more information along those lines. And like Dr. Ron Klotz from the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine is on the internet with a big video on it. Cancer, they are not really looking for cures. And from many different aspects. For example, there's a extract from a plant mistletoe in Germany. It's really developed very well that stimulates immune functions connected with that. We find a lot of data showing that the pH, the alkalinity in your body plays a key role, right? Like we have, for example, the water machines not only filters, there were water machines where you can adjust the pH. Like at our health center, we have a machine, and I go by there. I buy regular water, Pellegrino, at Costco in glass bottles, right? I don't drink.
Tastes better in glass.
Don't drink anything out of plastic bottles because, see, they're trying to change the ingredients of that, but plastic basically contains a chemical called BPA, and there's also phthalates in different cosmetics and so on and so on. They really become endocrine disruptors, and they're really very bad for you. Right? So, or food covered in plastic or contained in plastic that gets into the food is not really very good. So I prefer everything in glass. After I knew this, I saved the bottle. I go to a health center. I refill it with water, pH 8.7 or something like that. There were actually some studies from Scandinavia showing that people who live in very pristine northern areas in Scandinavia, where the pH of the water is 8.4, they have the lowest rate of cancer.
Do you, in other words, there's a lot of companies now that have high pH waters, right?
Mm-hmm.
7.5, 8.5, 9 or something like that. So you feel, based on the science, based on your background, that indeed those waters are better for us?
I definitely not negative about it. I mean, all the
So you think it has some merit?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Now,
I very much use them. I mean, I actually have a friend of mine at Torrance Airport, very nice fellow, who turned out to had cancer. It was very severe. Was at UCLA. They removed part of his digestive tract where there was melanoma in there, and this is a pretty bad type of cancer. But the bottom line is he followed a lot of basic good health practices, the detoxing, the water. I bring him water. Every time when I go to our health center, I fill a couple of extra bottles. I drop them over his hanger at the airport. And apparently he is clear of cancer. He just did a big evaluation at UCLA. There's an elderly professor over there, very open-minded to alternative approaches, and so he seems to be doing good. There's definitely nothing negative about it. See, that's the key thing really with cancer treatments today. Chemo is so bad for you.
Chemotherapy.
Anybody who has any questions about it, Google Ralph Moss, M-O-S-S.
Ralph Moss.
Right. Ralph Moss is a PhD. He was a Presbyterian in St. Luke in New York. He was keeping track of success rates of chemotherapy. And he finally wrote a book, and he basically, this is ridiculous. I mean, this chemotherapy is just worth absolutely nothing. And he says people in his evaluation, people, if they would pay attention to their own health practices, live a healthier lifestyle, and don't smoke, and this, and they would probably do better than doing chemotherapy.
No, wait, no, that might certainly be true. But in other words, he felt that chemotherapy does what? It's a debulking agent. It makes the tumor smaller.
Yeah, but in the process, it causes a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have a cancer patient. Oh, yeah, the cancer shrunk, and the cancer seemed to have totally disappeared. Well, it always comes back, right? And there's one major study recently published by Berkeley Professor Peter Duisberg. Basically, he
Peter
says,
Duisberg.
Yeah,
in Berkeley.
This is the guy who
He's
also
a
disagrees
molecular virologist
with the. He also the guy who disagrees with the HIV/AIDS hypothesis.
Right. Peter Duisberg, in Berkeley. Yes.
Okay. So in essence, basically what he says is carcinogenesis a form of speciation? That means when you do chemotherapy on cancers, it actually, in a very small number of cancer cells, they become their own little species. They become new species. See, we used to have, years ago, what did we have? We have lung cancer and kidney cancer and brain cancer and digestive cancer and this and that. Whatever, 20, 30 different types of cancer, and then the list grew a little bit bigger. Well, guess what? Latest evaluation, and that's National Institute of NIH, has nothing to do with aggressive, questionable alternative approaches, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
We now have, NIH has documented 57,000 different cancers.
Really?
Right. And according to Duisberg, they are actually induced by chemotherapy. Chemotherapy changes cancer cells to become their own little species. And
this
they
is from
propagate,
Peter Duisberg.
Yeah.
Now, Duisberg is a molecular virologist,
Right.
and he is
Molecular biology.
and he's very
chemistry.
highly regarded.
He was at the Max Planck Institute in
Right.
Germany. I mean, one of the scientific geniuses. Germany, the scientific community cried when he went to Berkeley. And then he had this big disagreement with HIV/AIDS, and he upset everybody in this field. But he has some very good data, right?
Now, Duesberg is I'm hoping we'll get maybe Duesberg on the show because he'd be fantastic. Now, you earlier mentioned this fellow who was a weightlifter, a bodybuilder, and who had cancer. And you mean to tell me that the entire protocol to heal this fellow was the sauna and the niacin, and that actually healed him of cancer?
Well, he did naturally all the health practices, right? We went through step by step.
Yeah.
I mean, quality nutrition, 3 regular meals, no junk food in there.
No, there's no processed sugar, no processed flour.
That's right. I mean, tremendously, literally eliminate sugar.
And how old a man was this?
He was at this time 64, a relatively young guy. Relative to me.
No, 64. Yeah, definitely pretty young for sure, and still strong. So it was the sauna, it was the niacin therapy, and of course you worked on his lifestyle. No processed sugar, no processed flour, fresher foods.
That's right. Foods as grown. Like, for example, he started what I'm always doing. I take cauliflower and broccoli, right? I eat it raw. In between, I chew on that stuff. I mean, it has tremendous anti-cancer ingredients in there, right? There's also some other key things. Selenium is a trace mineral.
Trace mineral selenium.
Right. Very important in stimulating immune functions, anti-cancer.
Selenium is considered anti-cancer.
Yes. Gerhard Strauser at the USC in San Diego published a lot of data, papers along those lines, right? He also followed a regimen of, getting at peace with himself, right? Because he was in a relationship that wasn't really good for him. His wife was, oh gosh. Anyway, I asked his wife to come over to our health center so I could tell her how she could support him with some regular good cooking, right? I mean, quality foods and so on and so on.
Right.
And she comes over to our health center, and she is doodled up like what I called up a doodled up steamship, whatever. I will go to the criminal police, right? Because we're keeping this guy alive. Obviously, she wanted his money. I mean, that was basically our thinking, right? And our MD, Dr. Wong, is a real Christian. He looks at me, he says, "Oh, God, there's a devil in our office." I said, "David, let me show you something." I put my arm on her shoulder. I said, "Let me show you something." I walked to the door. I opened the door. I gave a little push out and I closed the door. I see, David, the devil is gone. Right?
Okay, well, that's a pretty strong thing to do. So, in other words, the wife never got on board with the wellness program.
That's right. Right. I mean, see, stress management is very important.
Right.
Stress is one of the strongest telomere shortening factors. But on the other hand, also weightlifting, muscle exercises is the strongest factor in increasing immune functions and preventing cognitive losses as we get older. Right? I mean, look at older people. Nobody's doing any weight exercise anymore. We should be doing that. There was a publication out of Dresden University in Germany basically saying after the age of 80, rebuilding muscle is a total possibility and everybody should do that.
Wait, let me get after the age of 80, rebuilding muscle is very doable.
Right. It used to be that everybody used to think, well, after the age of 50, don't even think about rebuilding muscle. When I had my heart problem and I gave a talk about something like this, and I said, everybody, you should be doing exercise and so on, I mean, somebody interrupted me. He says, "Come on, Hans, after the age of 50, you can't build muscle mass." I said, "Totally wrong. I'll show you." And I did. With my whole program, I rebuilt 18 pounds of muscle that I had lost. Right? And I'm a little bit older than 60.
Right. Now, again, so when was this Dresden University study? When was this published?
Dresden University was just about last year.
Dresden University.
Just a few months ago. Yeah.
Is that a state university in Germany?
Actually, yes. It's actually in East Germany. And if you can go to any one of our websites, the Anti-Aging for Me, ANTIAGINF FORME, not the number 4, Anti-Aging for Me, FORME.org. And you can get that, or you can go to drhanskugler.com, and you can also see that there.
Now, you mentioned selenium as an anti-cancer aid. What about something as simple as vitamin C
Oh,
for
definitely.
the cancer patients? How much vitamin C should I use, and are there any studies that support that?
Totally. Linus Pauling, I consider him one of the greatest men ever, right, in the sciences.
And he did win 2 separate unshared Nobel Prize awards.
It's one, yes. As a matter of fact, when I was teaching at Roosevelt University, there was a gentleman, biochemist, who came very often and looked at one of my longevity studies that I was doing, right? And had a lot of questions about it and wanted to learn about this. And one day he calls me and says, my son is at Urbana University, has viral encephalitis. That means he's out in a coma. Normally, this is very bad. Even if they make it through that stuff, effect on mental performance.
Viral encephalitis.
Viral encephalitis, right? And I heard about Professor, that very different people were using vitamin C in that. And Linus Pauling had written something about it. And is there anything to it? And I said, yes, definitely. So he went down to actually by telephone, immediately said to these doctors, please give my son intravenous, very large amounts of vitamin C. They gave him the protocol that Professor Pauling had developed. And several of the doctors, oh, come on, that vitamin C was a nonsense. But there was one elderly doctor who said to these young guys, he said, listen, you know what it is, viral encephalitis. What would it cost us, or what difference would it make if we give that kid some vitamin C? If we don't do it, his father will say for the rest of his life, we could have done that. So anyway, they scrounged up 50 grams of IV vitamin C, gave it to the kid.
Intravenously.
Intravenous. Within 2 hours, the kid fell into a normal sleep, out of the coma. They scrounge up more from every university around, from every place. They got some vitamin. They made IV solutions, right? Gave him several times, I believe, over 3 days. They gave him something like 400 grams. Half a pound, literally, of vitamin C IV in applications of about 50 grams each. The kid came out of the coma, totally normal sleep, is back in medical school. He got his MD degree. Guess what he is following? Alternative medicine.
and now on vitamin C, when I put vitamin C we use it as a drip, correct? And how much vitamin C can I administer? And they administer it over the period of an hour or 2 hours. How do they do that? Like 50 grams. How long does that take to get in the body?
I'm not really into the practical approach of that one, right? I understand you can do this within a very short time. An hour or something. That you have a drip attached to it. Makes no real big difference. At what rate and what speed you do that. On the other hand, and on a personal basis, I believe that vitamin C is really very important with different things. Like I sometimes take several grams of vitamin C. Like if I'm a little bit under stress, I'll take 1,500 milligrams like this chewable vitamin C several times a day. There's nothing negative about it.
Right.
Sometimes in some people it maybe upsets their digestive tract a little bit and whatever. Well, so what? Then that only shows that your probiotic are not really in the right amounts. You take a little bit extra probiotic and it'll normalize all that, right?
Dr. Kugler, as we come to the end of the interview, once again, how can my listeners contact you?
Okay. The best thing is actually look at our websites, right? The antiagingforme.org, FORME.org, the drhanskugler.com. You can call me at the Health Integration Center in Torrance.
In Torrance, California.
Right, where I do individual anti-aging counseling on 310-326-8625, like 310-326-8625. Yes. I'm also available as speaker. I give a lot of talks on any aspect, any company that has a special meeting, anything on aging. It's a fascinating topic.
Sure,
and
certainly is.
I'm available.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well,
you've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hi, this is Jean Noel Bassior, inviting you to join me for my new show, The Book Beat, Monday evenings at 6:30 p.m. I'll be talking to authors about their latest book so you can find a fantastic read. But more than that, I'll be talking to experts about how you can write your own book and get it published. So tune in on Mondays at 6:30 p.m. exclusively on latalklive.com. And remember, you can catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Y'all ready for this? Yeah!
Hi, I'm Jerry Bell of the Daz Band in New Birth.
And I'm Brahima Arsalan.
Inviting you to join us every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Time for Jerry Bell's R&B Soul Classics, baby.
Join us as we play some of the greatest hits of soul and R&B and listen in to interesting discussions with the legends of the music.
So don't you forget, join us on the Jerry Bell's R&B Soul Classics. You'll love it. Exclusively on latalklive.com.
You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio.
Or watch us and listen directly at latalklive.com, baby.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure.
This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk, baby. We are music.
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez.
And I'm Lolita Robinson Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House
on latalklive.com. Inspirational radio
with a touch of recovery.
A reality show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant who says it.
Exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My next guest is Caitlin from Khalifa Farms. You've seen these intelligent, good-tasting beverages everywhere, Sprouts, everybody carries them. And they are very popular now. Caitlin, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Happy to have you on Here's to Your Health. So for my listeners, tell me, what are your beverages?
I would love to. So Califia Farms is a company with two brand lines. We make Cuties juice out of everyone's favorite tangerines, Cuties.
Right.
And we have Cuties juices and smoothies. And we also make a line of almond milks that have kind of changed the game in the alternative dairy industry. They've really taken the country by storm. We have a vanilla almond milk, a creamy original almond milk, a toasted coconut almond milk, and an unsweetened almond milk. And then we recently launched a line extension of our almond milks and our iced coffees with almond milk, kind of solving the quintessential vegan problem of how do I drink my coffee, without milk. So
is that an existential vegan problem? I did not know, but it certainly sounds like it could be. So now when you use the word almond milk,
yes,
for my listeners, in other words, it's an almond beverage, but there's no milk in it. There's no cow's milk. It's just almonds.
It's soy-free.
Soy-free, right.
It's dairy-free. It's lactose-free. And the reason we call it milk is that it's application is the same as cow's milk.
Yes.
In that you'd use it for your cereal, you'd use it for your coffee, you'd use it for your smoothies, for I like to just drink a tall glass of it. It's become the leader of the pack in the alternative dairy category.
Yes, it is.
It's been
Yes.
it was kind of traditionally soy. That was the darling of the alternative dairy category for a long time for people looking for a healthier alternative to cow's milk. Also, there's a rising number of people who've identified themselves as either lactose intolerant or having a dairy allergy. And so they've turned to soy and almond milks and a couple of other players. And the way the almond milk is made is that you essentially take almonds, and what we do is we take raw blanched almonds for the cleaner taste and the better nutritional profile, and you mix it with water and a couple of other ingredients to make sure that it can, stay that really nice creamy texture of milk.
Right.
But it's essentially water and almonds. And
Certainly seems simple enough, doesn't it?
yeah, it's pretty simple and it tastes really good. And so that's the reason that almond milk has been growing so quickly, is that soy milk never really tasted very good. And now people are learning that it's not actually very good for you. And also 90% of the country's soy crop is genetically modified.
Right.
So we make all of our products, everything that Califia Farms makes is non-GMO project verified. We have it on the back of the package. We have the seal of the non-GMO project. It's a label that we wear with a lot of pride.
Yes, it's
very important to us. But it's a huge differentiator against soy in that so much of the United States soy is genetically modified.
Yes.
So that's our almond milk line, and then the iced coffees with almond milk are made with Califia Farms almond milk, so they have that really creamy, dreamy, delicious taste. And then we also have our line of California citrus juices, and what makes them so special is just that they're from California. Our California orange juice is made with all California fruit. If you look at our label, it looks kind of like the old iconic California fruit crates. We're really proud of our California heritage. And then we make a Meyer lemonade, which is great because Meyer lemons are a little bit sweeter. They're just a really delicious fruit. And then we make a California limeade. And then an exciting move, I don't have them with me today because they're not on shelves, but we're offering these juices in a 12-ounce line.
Ah, nice idea.
So those juices will come out soon, and they'll be perfect for lunches and for making sure that kids can have that option on the go.
And now if people want to, use your almond milk, I mean, how do I use it again? How do I use it?
So it's really cool in that you can use it in the exact same way that you use cow's milk or soy milk or whatever your dairy preference has been. Almond milk has the exact same application, even in cooking and baking. It's a 1-to-1. It's a 1-to-1 ratio with cow's milk.
Oh, I see.
So you can use the exact same amount of almond milk in your recipes. My favorite thing about Califia Farms almond milk is that there's an almond milk for every occasion. So I really like to use vanilla in my cereal. I think it's just a nice kind of subtle vanilla flavor. I like to use the Creamy Original in my coffee. And it's actually become the coffee of choice at a lot of really cool Bay Area coffee shops.
Oh, really?
4 Barrel actually did a big announcement that they were replacing soy, and they brought in Califia Farms almond milk.
Nice.
And so whenever anyone goes to a 4 Barrel in San Francisco and they ask for an almond milk latte or an almond milk cappuccino, it's Califia Farms because it steams so nicely. And then our unsweetened almond milk is one of our best sellers because a lot of people are looking for that low-calorie, no sugar-added option.
Right.
I love it in smoothies. It's my favorite thing to put in smoothies just for creaminess and
What's a
deliciousness.
smoothie again? Just tell me guys.
Blended fruit drink. I mean, I like to make them in the morning. You can add protein powder. You can add frozen fruit, vegetables.
Right.
Just a great on-the-go kind of nutritious beverage.
Mm-hmm.
And then our toasted coconut has been a huge hit. It's a really delicious almond milk, and that it has a little bit more of an exotic flavor. And it's no sugar added. It's only 50 calories a serving. So a lot of people who don't add any sugar to their diet and who are dairy-free and soy-free have found that the toasted coconut is a great solution to finding that a little bit of sweetness and exotic flavor in their life. And then I really like to use that one in baking to add a little bit of fun. Or I really like to use it in hot breakfast cereal. Oatmeal, sweet quinoa is really delicious with our coconut almond milk. So there's a Califia almond milk for for every occasion. You can really do whatever you want with it.
And how long has this been around?
Califia Farms was started in 2010 in partnership with the growers of Cuties Fruit. So our Cuties juice line has been around for 3 years. Our almond milk line has been around for 2 years. We've been national for about 6 months. We were picked up by all Whole Foods nationwide.
Yes, I've seen that, yeah.
And so that was...
so you're kind of brand new then, aren't you? Pretty much
we're
brand new.
Really new. We're very, very new.
Right.
We're growing, like wildfire, but we're very new. And we're coming out with a lot of new stuff. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Did you know, and did you feel the owners of the company felt that in advance that they knew that almonds were poised to become widely acceptable to people?
Our company has a really fascinating history. Our CEO is Greg Steltenpohl, who was the founder of Odwalla.
Odwalla? Oh, I see. Oh, my
yeah,
goodness.
So he started
Right.
Odwalla Juices back in the 80s.
Right.
And he was, he actually back then said, hey, you guys, soy, that's the next thing. It's going to happen. No one really listened to him. And so when he left Odwalla and he started Califia Farms, he said, there's never been a great tasting almond milk. He knew that soy wasn't the direction he wanted to go in. He just knew that that was where the beverage trend was headed, was in alternative dairy growth. And so he said, someone should make a great tasting almond milk that's really good for you. So Califia Farms from the beginning knew that it was going to be an alternative dairy company. And almonds make, as a huge part of California's agriculture.
Yes.
Almonds is a great fit for our California brand. And that was where Califia Farms almond milk started. And
What was this fellow's name again?
Greg Steltenpohl is our CEO. And he's a total beverage guru, mixologist of great ideas and insights.
And what's the shelf life? Like, for example, if I buy one of the almond milks, how soon do I have to use it up?
So once you open it, we recommend using it in 7 to 11 days. And it's not like milk in that it'll get a funny taste, but if the texture starts to change, that it's been open past that 11-day mark. Its shelf life is actually 90 days. So from the time we ship it to our customers to the time you buy it, there's a really healthy shelf life on our almond milk. But it does always have to be refrigerated. It's flash pasteurized, but it's not shelf stable. So that's part of the reason why it's taken us a longer time to get to the East Coast. And I actually do our consumer relations, and we have people from Australia and England and countries all over the world who see our pictures on social media and see it all over the internet and say, I want to try that. When's it coming? And it's refrigerated, so it'll be a little while.
Right. Just a little while.
Yeah.
And roughly, what do they sell for?
$3.99 is the suggested retail price for our almond milks.
These are 32 ounces?
48, actually.
48 ounces.
Those are 48 ounces. And then, it all changes across the board with the different brand lines, but I would say you can expect to see them around $3.99 on shelves.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. It's a healthy option for your whole family, and that's why, we put it at that price.
And it tastes good.
Yeah, and it tastes really good. That's actually, health is really important to us. Our motto is health is wealth. Nature is our source. And above all, we want it to taste good so that people will keep drinking it.
Right, good for you.
And also, I think a lot of people who couldn't drink dairy for most of their lives have felt they had to compromise and go without. They couldn't have, they couldn't enjoy a lot of the things that taste really good. And so with Califia Farms, you don't have to compromise. You still get that great taste. And a lot of people think it tastes a lot better than cow's milk.
That's right. And also, if you drink cow's milk and every time you drink it, you get nice and sick,
yeah.
you learn pretty quickly, well, I'd rather not be sick.
Exactly.
So it's nice to consume something that tastes good, that you enjoy, and that it's actually good for you.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we do what we do.
Right. Why don't you give me like a web address so we can maybe, check you out directly?
Fabulous. And on our website, we have a store locator, so you can find your closest Califia. So our website, which we've just newly redesigned and launched, it's really beautiful, is www.califiafarms.com. And that's spelled CALIFIAFARMS.com. And then we also love to connect with our fans and build community on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Califia Farms. And that's where we share recipes and usage ideas. And people tell us what they've been using Califia for, which is really fun. And, we get here all the time. I found you today and I'm never going back, or
Right.
Stuff like that. So it's great to get that really genuine fan feedback.
Well, Caitlin of Calafia Farms, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh. It's been really fun.
It's been fun. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
The American Heart Association's Heart Walk is coming. Bring your family, bring your friends, bring your coworkers. Help yourself and those around you to live longer, healthier lives. Form a team today and walk to help the American Heart Association defeat heart disease and stroke, two of the nation's leading killers. For more information, visit heartwalk.org.
Hey everyone, this is Richard Carr, Business Relations Manager for LA Talk Live. Did you know social media produces almost double the marketing leads of trade shows, telemarketing, direct mail, or even pay-per-click ads? And that about 46% of all online users count on social media when making that ever-important purchase decision. Hey, if you feel lost when it comes to social media, Top Tier Media can help you. Top Tier Media specializes in social media management and blogger outreach for beauty, fashion, health, and lifestyle brands. To learn more, go to www.toptiermedia.com. That's www.toptiermedia.com. Top Tier Media, the official social media marketing company of LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network.
Hi, this is Elena, inviting you to join me every Wednesday at noon for Elena's Beauty Talk and more, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My next guest, Dr. Mark Halpern, has a school of Ayurvedic medicine, considered possibly, I believe it was the first school of Ayurvedic medicine that was established in the United States. And Mark has been a guest on my show before, a great conversation. So our conversation, this segment is going to be on Ayurvedic healthcare. Mark Halpern, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you, Josh. It's a pleasure to be back here with you.
Yeah, thank you. No, it was a great conversation last time, and so I'm happy to have you back on. And by the way, what's the exact name of your school and where is it?
It's called the California College of Ayurveda, and we're located in Nevada City, California, which is just north and east of Sacramento.
And your school, you've been around now about 20 years?
Yeah, pretty close. We held our first classes in 1995. So I think we're going into our 18th, 19th year now. Yeah.
And so for my listeners, what is Ayurvedic healthcare?
Well, Ayurveda is the traditional medicine of India, and it's the healing side of yoga. It's a remarkable healthcare system because it's based on the idea that we're all unique individuals, that each one of us has our own unique biochemistry, we have our own unique physiology, and it's determined at the moment of conception. It's a genetic basis. And once you understand that, then you can create an environment that your body and your mind will thrive in. So Ayurveda is a science of living harmoniously with nature, but the way each of us lives is unique because we're all unique individuals.
Yes, okay. And again, from reading your book, so Ayurveda has been around for several thousand years.
It's the healing side of yoga, and it's about 5,000 years old. It's a system, though, that's really as relevant today as it was 5,000 years ago. We use these incredible ancient textbooks. One of them was written in 3500 BC called the Charaka Samhita. And you would think, oh my gosh, this has to be so old, so ancient. What could they possibly know about modern times back then? And when you read the books, they describe the cause of disease and the cause of suffering, and it's exactly the same causes as we have today. And they also describe the diseases we have today. They actually describe diabetes mellitus, they describe cancer, Parkinson's disease, all the diseases we have. They had them then. They also figured out how to either prevent or to cure them. And all of that knowledge is still available, and it's contained within the knowledge of Ayurveda.
And before you had your school, you got your undergraduate degree at the State University in Buffalo?
That's right. At the University of Buffalo. And then from
Which is
there,
a good school, very good school.
Thank you. And then from there, I went out to Palmer College of Chiropractic in Northern California. And from there, went on to postgraduate training in holistic medicine and then specialized in Ayurvedic medicine.
And Palmer is one of the oldest schools of chiropractic, is it not?
Yeah, it is. It is, in fact, D.D. Palmer is the founder of chiropractic, and his son started the first school, BJ. Mm-hmm.
And so reading your book, as a young man, you bumped into a chiropractor when you were 16 who took you to a chiropractic meeting, Sherman Chiropractic?
That's right. Yeah, Sherman College of I was blessed. I was so blessed because I met a man who was just so excited about helping to make the world a better place. And I was looking for something like that. That's what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to make the world healthy. I wanted to make the world happy. He was the first person I met that was truly healthy and happy and excited to wake up every day and spread the gospel of chiropractic. And so I decided when I was 16 years old, that's what I wanted to do. And he took me with him from New York, where I grew up, to South Carolina, where Sherman College of Chiropractic is. And I got to spend a week with some of the most incredible healers talking about why we get sick and how to eradicate the cause of disease.
So really, right away, you just kind of felt at home. You thought, I love these ideas. They make sense to me. I just love this. Is that it?
It spoke so deeply to me. It really did. It spoke deeply to me. And you know what? It didn't speak so deeply to me for the reasons that most people associate with chiropractic today. You know, when I met these men who were, and women who were chiropractors, they were talking about healing well beyond the musculoskeletal system, well beyond back pain and neck pain. They were talking about healing through reconnecting man the physical with man the spiritual. And from that reunification, they said healing would take place. Mm-hmm. And they thought that the chiropractic adjustment would help facilitate that reconnection. They called the divine, they called that universal intelligence. And they said inside the human body's an innate intelligence. And when you reestablish that connection, then healing takes place. And they believed that the subluxation, the chiropractic misalignment, is what interfered with that connection between the body and the universal intelligence. So I went into chiropractic because that really turned me on. That got me excited. Something about that spoke as truth in my heart. Mm-hmm. And then I went to study chiropractic. When I went to study chiropractic, I got a little bit dismayed. I got dismayed because there was so much emphasis on the musculoskeletal system, so much emphasis on the science of chiropractic. And there's nothing wrong with the science and using science to validate or test chiropractic theories. But there was a dismissal of the deeper psycho-spiritual aspects that these early teachers of mine were professing. And that's what spoke so deeply in my heart. And when I started going through my schooling, I started to feel lost. I began to feel like there had to be more to healing than just doing an architectural analysis of the spine.
Now, I remember in reading the book, you did mention that when there was discussion of philosophy of healing, that you said roughly half the students really didn't like it and didn't want it. Okay, so fine. So luckily you did like it and you did want it, and the others didn't. And that's okay. But you found that's an important component of wellness.
You know, it really, truly is. And when we talk about philosophy as a component of wellness, what we're really talking about is how we think and how we feel and the deepest sense of well-being that we can have, which is our connectedness to something greater than ourselves. And what impact does that have on our mind, and what impact does that have on our bodies? In Ayurveda, we understand that the root cause of disease and suffering lies within our consciousness. It lies.
Let me hear that once again.
The root cause of disease and suffering lies within our consciousness.
Okay.
That part of ourselves that feels our connectedness or lack of connectedness with something greater than ourselves. And how we relate to that which is greater than ourselves impacts how we think and how we feel. And that impacts our physiology.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a big concept. I'm not sure I necessarily understand it particularly, but I kind of get a little bit of it. And so you were a you graduated from school, and at this point your health was not good, which wasn't very surprising for a young guy.
Yeah.
And chiropractors are usually, wellness guys. They're obviously into it. So what happened to you when you did so badly health-wise?
Well, just before I graduated from chiropractic school, I woke up one morning and I had pain in my ankle.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up the next morning and it was gone, and it was in my other ankle. And then it spread. It spread into my knees, into my elbows, into my wrists, and it completely crippled me. And I wound up bedridden. My liver wasn't functioning properly. My spleen wasn't functioning properly. I was anemic. I was losing weight. I was completely incapacitated.
Actually, since you were going to chiropractor school, didn't you mention this to professors, etc.?
I did. I went to one of my professors who was a medical doctor. Many of our teachers at school were medical doctors. And he taught us internal medicine. And he was an internist. And I'll never forget his response when I went to him and I said, I'm having this pain that's going from one part of my body to another part of my body. And he looked at me and he calculated in his mind the odds and statistics of what I might be experiencing, what I'd likely be experiencing. And he concluded within a very short period of time, he said, well, Mark, young men of your age with migrating polyarthritis have a form of gonorrhea called gonococcal arthritis. And therefore, all you need is a shot of penicillin and you'll be well. And so I thought, okay, you're the doctor.
Now, of course, you didn't have gonorrhea, and you had a relationship, and so you didn't actually have gonorrhea. But this guy, now, did you feel bad when he said he said to you, no, you have gonorrhea, and you're thinking, I don't have gonorrhea. Because when you don't feel good, though, you don't feel good, so you think, this guy said to me, I have gonorrhea, but you did not.
I couldn't imagine that it was possible. But, relationships being what they are, is everybody monogamous in the relationship all the time? Is there a possibility, some remote chance? When a doctor tells you, well, this is what's wrong with you, you start thinking, well, I guess maybe.
You're inclined to listen to him, especially, this was 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, this was 30 years ago.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so he said, just come to my office, get a shot of penicillin, and you'll be fine. And so I said, okay. And I went to his office, got a shot of penicillin. And as you probably read in the book, when I walked out the office, I passed out on the steps.
You hadn't even left the office, and you passed out.
I passed out just as I left the office on the steps right outside the office. I passed out from an anaphylactic reaction to the penicillin.
What's an anaphylactic reaction?
Anaphylaxis is a severe acute allergic reaction where your blood pressure drops radically, your heart can stop, you get a rash from head to toe. It is a crisis situation and it's life-threatening. Usually, and in my case, what they did is they give you epinephrine, and that restarts your body.
Did you injure your head when you fell?
No, I didn't. I fell to the ground. I was there with my girlfriend at the time, and I went down to the ground as my blood pressure began to drop, and the next thing I knew, I was waking up in the office. And I had a rash now from head to toe. And he said, don't worry, you had an anaphylactic reaction, but the drug will still work. You're going to be okay. Go home. Everything's going to be fine. Well, everything wasn't fine. I continued to deteriorate. And as I deteriorated, I began to look for alternative ways to heal myself, as well as conventional. I went to see the very best immunologists and rheumatologists at Stanford University. As well as the best chiropractors and acupuncturists and homeopaths. And none of that was able to help me. Nobody seemed to have the answer. Nobody seemed to know what was causing my illness. They could measure the dysfunction in my body, but they didn't know what was causing the dysfunction in my body. And so they didn't know what the cure was. And at Stanford University, they wanted to hospitalize me, put me on different medicines to control the inflammation. Let me know that there were great risks involved with that, but that they didn't see any other options for me. And it was just before, or just right when I was to make that decision, am I going to go left or am I going to go right? Should I go into the hospital or not? That I had an experience, and you hear about these spiritual experiences and you think, oh, these people are crazy, they're having some delusion. Okay, but I had that delusion. And I had an experience where I was laying in bed and I was crying. And I was crying because I was mourning the loss of the life that I thought I was going to live.
Right.
And as I lay there...
Which seems fair, doesn't it, actually? Yeah. You think, oh my God, I'm young and I can't move, and right.
I was in my mid-20s.
Right.
And I, at that point, the weight of a bed sheet on my body would cause me to scream in pain. I had such incredible stiffness in the morning, I could not move. It was horrible. I lay there crying in bed, and in that despondent moment, I hear a voice. And the voice says to me, first of all, don't worry, you're going to be okay. And for me, what that meant in that moment was whether I live or die, I was going to be okay. And there was an incredible peacefulness that came with that. Okay didn't mean I was going to get better. It just meant it's going to be okay. And that I had to go on a journey. I was told that I had to go on a journey to heal myself. And that if I succeeded on that journey, then I would get to go ahead and do the work that I'm meant to do in this world, and I'd be able to help other people. That was the crux of the message. And if I don't, it's okay, because I'm going to be okay. Live or die. And so when I had to make that decision, should I go left or go right, that was the last time that I decided to see the medical doctors for that condition. And I began my journey into alternative medicine. I went to the best chiropractors, acupuncturists, and homeopaths. None of that worked for me. Most people would probably think, oh, he must have gone to an Ayurvedic doctor and gotten well, and that's why he now does Ayurvedic medicine. But it's not that simple, no. I didn't even know about Ayurvedic medicine. I don't think very many people did. Mm-hmm. That was the mid-1980s. And so I just started to follow the advice of people, and it led me from one step to another, and I ran into a fellow who was a healer through the laying on of hands. So now my story really gets strange.
Okay, laying on of hands. Okay, yes.
He heals through the laying on of hands.
Mm-hmm, right.
And so I was driven an hour and a half to go and see him away, and he laid me down on the table for 15 minutes, laid his hands on my body, and I felt the heat coming from his hands. And after about 15 minutes, he sat me up and he said, okay, we're done. And I looked at him and I said, you're psychic, right? He says, yeah. I said, so are you going to tell me what's going on? And he looks kind of sheepish at first, a little shy, but then he says, okay. He says, you're going to go home tonight. You're going to have, your fever's going to rise. It was 99 when I went to see him. He says, it's going to rise up to 105. He says, you're going to have tremendous night sweats, and in the morning, you'll be fine. And I thought, wow, that's pretty specific. I was thinking he was going to tell me something esoteric, something I could find meaning in, something anybody could find meaning in,
right.
Mm-hmm. No, he just made it very clear what he expected to have happen. He said, your immune system is not working, and I gave your body a jump start. He says, now that I gave you a jump start, it's going to kick in the gear, and this is what's going to happen. And I thought, wow, okay. So I went home, and I laid down, and that night I put a towel underneath me, and I waited for the sweat to come pouring out of my body and my fever to rise. And in the middle of the night, I checked the towel underneath me because I didn't want to soak my bed, and it was dry. And when I woke up in the morning, it was still dry, and I didn't have a fever. Nothing happened.
Right.
And so I called him up in the morning. His name is Greg Shelkin. I called up Greg in
What's
the
his
morning.
name?
Greg Shelkin.
Mm-hmm.
And I called up Greg in the morning. And I said, Greg, nothing happened. Nothing happened. He says, sometimes you need a second jump start. I said, Greg, I can't travel up there again. It took every last ounce of energy that I have. I said, I can't travel up there again. He said, and I said, I have no money. I gave you the lab as a student. I had no money. He says, that's okay. Sit where you are, sit quietly in meditation, and I'll do the healing from here.
Over the phone?
Over a distance, not even over the phone. Just hang up, go into meditation.
Oh, I see. Oh, not even over the phone?
Not even over the phone.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Not even over the phone. Just go sit in meditation and I'll do the healing on you from here. And I thought, okay, this is just getting stranger and stranger, but okay, what have I got to lose? I've got nowhere to go and I can't really walk around, so I just sat quietly.
In your apartment?
In my apartment, yeah. I could still see myself there right now.
And he was in his office?
He was in his office an hour and a half away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began to feel heat on my body in the parts of the area that he touched the previous day. And I said to myself, no, I'm just imagining that, because I'm remembering what he did. And then that night I went to bed. And that night, my fever rose to 105. And I began to have tremendous night sweats. And Greg was almost right in his prediction, his understanding of what would happen, because my fever rose as he said it would. I had night sweats as he said it would, but it didn't come down. And for the next 2 weeks, my temperature fluctuated between 103.5 and 105.5.
That's bad, isn't it? That's bad. Isn't it bad? Yeah.
That's bad.
And with your medical training, what were you thinking?
You know what? Whether I lived or died didn't matter to me at that moment. I knew I was going to be okay. I was really in a very, very strong place of faith.
Huh?
I could only lay there. I was living with my girlfriend. She could feed me fluids and little things that I could eat. And that's what I was surviving on. And I don't think I was really thinking, to be honest with you, because with 103 to 105 degrees for that long, you don't start to think the way you and I start to think. And in fact, as I was laying there in bed, because now I was physically crippled and virtually catatonic as well, all I could do was be there. And then more unusual experiences began to occur. As I was laying there, I began to witness myself. I began to experience myself. It was as if I was separate from my body, separate from my mind, and looking in on myself.
Uh-huh.
And I could see how there would be some individuals that could have some sort of visual or imaginary experience like that and describe it as being separate and hovering over yourself and looking at yourself. But I don't want to present it that way, because it's not as though I was aware of some ghostly body hovering over myself. Instead, what I was aware of was that I was watching myself, my body and my mind in bed, that there was a part of me that I was getting in touch with that was completely unaffected by the illness.
Uh-huh.
Completely unaffected by the illness, absolutely perfect, watching me be sick, watching me in bed being sick. I remember looking at myself and I was no longer solid. I was a densely packed field of energy. That's all I could describe it as. And I began to realize that as I was watching myself, there was blockages to the flow of energy in my body. There were blockages in my liver and my spleen, but there were also blockages anywhere I had pain. And then as I continued to witness this like a child, because I had no way to relate to it, I began to learn, as a child learns, how to interact with that energy. I tell the story sometimes of a child learning to, and I base it on my own son. I remember when he was very young, maybe 6 months, sitting in a chair, and I put a crayon and a piece of paper on the chair, and he reached for the crayon, and he touched it, and it rolled off the table. And as it rolled off the table, I went and I picked it up on the ground, and I put it back on the table. I put it back on the table. And when I put it back on the table, I was waiting for him to do something with this crayon. It was a crayon. And he went and he reached for it and he knocked it off the table again. And now I could see his mind working, and clearly to him, a crayon was something that you knock off the table. It's bright colored. You knock it off the table, and Dad goes down and picks it up, puts it back on the table again, and that's the game. And he kept on playing it.
Oh, that's very cool.
But eventually, as time passed, he picked up the crayon in his hand and he began smashing it on the paper. And now he had discovered a whole new use of a crayon. Eventually, he began to draw and eventually became an artist as time went on. For me, it was just like that when I was working with this energy that I could perceive in myself. I didn't know what to do with it, but through what I can best describe as awareness and intention. That combination, I was able to unblock the flow of energy in my liver and in my spleen through very subtle channels and in the joints of my body. And as soon as I learned how to do that, the pain began to diminish. My body began to feel as though life energy was coursing back into the dying tissues. And I knew in that moment, if I could just keep the energy flowing freely in my body, those tissues would begin to heal themselves. And sure enough, over the course of that 2-week period of time, I was able to keep those channels open long enough. The tissues were able to heal enough. And eventually I was able to work my way back to a wheelchair, back to walking again, and then continuing my healing journey, because it wasn't as though after 2 weeks I was done.
Right.
But I was now functional again in the world, and I suffered from severe chronic fatigue for about 7 years. And I continued my journey. And I continued it through this technique I learned called Yoga Nidra.
Yoga Nidra.
Yoga Nidra.
Mm-hmm. Which is what?
This technique called Yoga Nidra is best described as conscious, deep relaxation, wherein you can enter into that same state I entered into when I had that fever and I was observing my body and I was observing the energy in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned from a woman named Mary Richards how to enter into that state. And it thrust me back into the same level of awareness that I had when I was in a state of fever, only now I was laying down, meditating. And in that form of meditation called Yoga Nidra, I practiced for 3 hours a day for 7 years,
Wow.
continuing to work on the healing of my body on very subtle levels and continuing to rebuild my internal energy. You see, this disease I had ravaged my body. It wasn't just arthritis. I had what was described by the doctors as 2 different diagnoses. One was negative Lyme's disease, and the other one was mixed connective tissue disorder. Here's just some of the symptoms I had. I became allergic to the sun. The skin was peeling off.
Excuse me, Mark.
Yes.
Did you become allergic after you had the anaphylactic shock to the penicillin?
Yes.
Right. So really, is it possible, is it fair to say that the chronic fatigue syndrome that you experienced was really as a direct result of the terrible reaction which almost caused your death from the antibiotic?
It's too hard to say what was the cause.
Right. It might not be the only cause.
Too
but
hard to say what
would
cause.
it be a major cause, though?
It was certainly a factor that upset the functioning of my body. There's no question about that. But I had some very unusual symptoms. The skin on my fingers was peeling off. The skin on my hand was peeling off. I had claw marks on my back and on my buttocks, red claw marks that would come and go. My eyes were 3/4 shut just because light itself, I was so sensitive to light. My eyes were always red. And I had a dryness in my eyes, dryness in my mouth, dryness in my skin, and my sleep rhythms were so unusual that some nights I would not sleep at all. Some nights I'd fall asleep at 5 a.m., some nights at 3 a.m., some nights at 7 a.m. For years, I gave up on the whole idea that I'd possibly ever be able to have a normal sleeping rhythm. And this went on for years and years. Everybody knew me. If I went to visit their home, they knew that at 3 a.m, if they got up to go to the bathroom, I'd be sitting on the couch reading because I didn't sleep. And it was this practice of Yoga Nidra, which literally translated means yogic sleep, that kept me alive because I could deeply, deeply, deeply rest in that state.
In retrospect now, were there any practices as a young man that, in your opinion, based on what you know now, might have pushed you towards the terrible problems with structure that you experienced?
You know, Josh, my lifestyle leading up to being sick when my body crashed absolutely contributed to my body crashing. My physical and my mental state of mind were both compromised. Now, physically, I lived a life probably similar to a certain segment of our society. From the age of 16 on, I began to smoke pot. I began to experiment with psychedelic drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I was never a heavy drug user to the point where one would identify me as a drug addict. Never that far. I love to follow the Grateful Dead and have fun.
Right.
I had a lot of fun. And so by using social drugs on a fairly regular basis, having a very rich social life, going to, as a college student, going to happy hour often, having my dinner at happy hour sometimes. My idea of being healthy, and you know what? I was studying chiropractic, so of course I was going to be healthy. So I was doing all of that and making sure that I was drinking purified water. Okay?
Well, it's a start anyways. It is a start, really.
That's right. That's right. And then eventually whole grains and everything led to other things. But my point is...
So excuse me, can I throw this in here?
Yeah.
So as a college student, you were doing, in retrospect, more drinking than was good for you, more drinking of alcohol.
More drinking of alcohol, more smoking of marijuana, more use of psychedelic drugs than I would say was good for me. Absolutely. And we're all different. But certainly it was taking its toll on me over the years. At the same time, I was under tremendous amounts of stress from school. And that was the emotional component of what was happening. I was stressed out about examinations. I was stressed out about my finances. I was going deep into debt to become a chiropractor. How would I ever handle that when I graduated? As I was getting closer and closer to graduation now from chiropractic school, my mother and my father were about to come out for graduation in a couple of months, and they'd been divorced. And that was going to be a fiery reconnection, and
Sure,
I was
that would be
stressed
stressful
about
for
that.
everybody. Yeah, it could be, yeah.
You know what? It's not any one thing. I believe in intersecting lines. When enough lines of stress intersect physically, emotionally, chemically, when those things all come together at one time in your life, you buckle under it. And my immune system buckled under it. I had been bitten by a tick. There's no doubt about that. Did I have Lyme's disease? Maybe I had some Lyme's co-infections. I could very well have had Lyme's disease. But some people get bit by a tick and they don't get Lyme's disease. Some people get bit by a tick and they're crippled by it. And
Yes.
everybody's response to it is different.
Yes.
And it depends on what's going on in your life and how strong and effective your immune system is, and the physical and emotional and the spiritual components of what was happening to me in my life at that time. It caused my body to collapse, and I had to go on quite a journey in order to get myself back at 120%, because I actually am healthier now than I was then.
Mark, we're speaking with Dr. Mark Halpern, and we're speaking about healing and Ayurvedic healthcare ideas. And we're going to take a very short break, and we'll be right back with Dr. Mark Halpern. So please stay tuned.
Hey everyone, this is Richard Carr, Business Relations Manager for LA Talk Live. Did you know social media produces almost double the marketing leads of trade shows, telemarketing, direct mail, or even pay-per-click ads? And that about 46% of all online users count on social media when making that ever-important purchase decision. Hey, if you feel lost when it comes to social media, Top Tier Media can help you. Top Tier Media specializes in social media management and blogger outreach for beauty, fashion, health, and lifestyle brands. To learn more, go to www.toptiermedia.com. That's www.toptiermedia.com. Top Tier Media, the official social media marketing company of LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network.
Hi, this is Susan Levin, owner and founder of Speaker Services, inviting you to join me and co-host Jean Noel Bassiar on Monday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific, for our new show, Talk Up Your Business, Speak Your Way to More Profits. We'll be talking to you about how to use your expertise to grow your business or service through speaking. Our expert speakers and author guests will share their stories and success secrets with you. Don't forget to tune in to Talk Up Your Business Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for a new show right here on LA Talk Live, The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. We're continuing our conversation with Dr. Mark Halpern, who is a chiropractor who founded a school of Ayurvedic healing in Nevada City, California, which I guess is possibly one of the premier institutes. As a matter of fact, what's your relationship with the state of California and your school?
Well, the California College of Ayurveda was the first state-approved college for the study of Ayurvedic medicine anywhere in the United States. In fact, it was the first professional training program to train practitioners of Ayurvedic medicine outside of India. That goes all the way back to...
That's a very nice first, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sure.
It goes all the way back to 1995 is when we first began. Today we're on an 1.5-acre campus. We have 15,000 square feet. We have several classrooms, administrative staff, a full clinic where we take care of patients from all over the world that fly into our clinic. We have...
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have residential facilities for our patients as well as an outpatient clinic. We have a student clinic as well as a graduate practitioner clinic. So we have our interns who are working there as well as graduate practitioners.
And what's the exact name of the school once again? The exact name.
It's called the California College of Ayurveda.
And what prompted you to pick Nevada City, besides the fact that it's a very kind of happening city? No, seriously, I always ask this question about Nevada City. I mean, why is it such a little magnet for progressive stuff?
You know, Josh, when I first went to Nevada City 20 years ago, I don't think it was quite as progressive and quite as the reputation that it has today. So it's changed quite a bit over the years. And yet, there was always the seeds of progressive thought that were there. When I went there because I was just looking for a great place to raise a family.
Oh, really?
Great schools. I love the mountains. Beautiful environment. It's a cute little town, and I can't speak enough about the arts and the culture that are there. And to have an island of such art and culture in the middle of the Sierra Mountains, which is really a conservative community. Mm-hmm. Is really quite remarkable. And then it was only after I moved there that I found out that there were several yoga ashrams that were there, the Shivananda Yoga Farm and the Ananda community. And then eventually, in fact, when I moved there, I didn't even know I was going to start a school. I was just going to practice Ayurvedic medicine. But eventually the vision came to begin to build an Ayurvedic profession in the United States. The vision emerged, and I was to serve that vision. Mm-hmm. So eventually we started a school there. And it fit in so beautifully with the culture of the community, and the community really supported it. And our students, though, came from outside the community. 90% of our students for many years were coming from all over California. They were commuting there from the Bay Area, moving there from LA. Oh. And just as our patients do today, they come from all over the world now, not just even the United States. We have patients that come from Canada, from Brazil, from Europe in order to receive the treatments that we offer there. The students are the same way. In fact, our programs today are being that we're now utilizing modern technology we didn't use in 1995. Our classrooms have now been opened up to students all over the world through the internet. So we have live video classrooms that are integrated into the classroom. So in other words, we might have 20 students in the class, And just as you might see on CNN, we have 10 or 15 more students being projected onto screens. And they're fully interactive, and they're in the classroom too. Only they are anywhere in the world. We have students as far away as Japan, Ireland, Africa, and India.
Oh my God, that certainly is modern, isn't it? That's amazing.
It's really remarkable today, the technology that allows schools to reach out beyond its walls. It's really incredible. We offer traditional distance learning programs where we connect you with a master teacher, a mentor, if you will, who supports you through your education up until the point of your internship, and you can learn Ayurveda that way and then come to our school for internship. But we also offer this live internet classroom integrated in with our regular classroom. And so different students, depending upon what's going on in their lives, will be able to seek out Ayurvedic education in the model that really fits their needs. And that was our goal, to be able to offer several different modalities of studies, different pathways, if you will, to becoming a clinical Ayurvedic specialist, which is the highest degree of training that you can receive in the United States.
Now, as all methods, all science, everything is always growing and changing.
Yeah.
So the Ayurveda that you may have practiced 50 or 75 years ago is different now, isn't it? I mean, for example, we know more about nutrition now. So, I mean, what has changed that you would say over the past 10 years? For example, food's important to me. So what about the role of food for my healing if you were an Ayurvedic practitioner working on me? So let's just talk about what are some of the things you teach on food?
Okay. Well, I love this subject. Mm-hmm. I love this subject so much because it flies in the face of conventional and alternative thinking about nutrition, because this is really the alternative to even the mainstream alternatives to nutrition.
Okay.
Let me explain what I mean. See, I actually don't see that much of a difference between alternative nutrition and what I would consider to be mainstream ideas of what you should eat. Then there's the common ideas, which is the uneducated ideas. So, the idea of eating at McDonald's, everybody would agree. If all you did was eat at fast food restaurants, and there's been movies about it, obviously you're going to get very sick. Junk food diet,
not a good
junk
choice,
body, right? Junk diet, junk body.
Right.
Very easy to understand. But you see, there's this pharmaceutical idea of how to be healthy, and there's a nutraceutical idea about how to be healthy. Mm-hmm. And they're both utilizing modern ideas of science to make decisions about what you should put into your body.
Right.
And as information changes, modern science changes and tells you different conclusions. So that every 20 years, science will tell you something different. That what you were to do 20 years ago is not what you should do today. And you can be guaranteed that what you're told to do today through nutrition is going to be different than 20 years from now.
True.
Which basically means that most of what we're learning today is not true.
It could mean that. Yes, it certainly could mean that. Right.
Now, Ayurvedic medicine is based on a set of principles for how you relate to your environment. Mm-hmm. And if you relate to your environment properly, then you're going to be healthy. And these principles never change. So the principles are as relevant today as they were 75 years ago or 7,500 years ago, and they'll be just as relevant 75 years into the future. And it is a guaranteed way for you to reach optimum health and peace of mind. Let me give you an example.
Please.
If you're a plant and you get the right sunlight, you get the right soil, you get the right water and nutrients for your unique plant, that plant's going to have a deep, rich color and lots of blossoms. Now, you're the same way. If you take in through your 5 senses, not just through diet, but through what you smell, what you see, what you hear, and what you touch, as well as what you taste, if you take in what is ideal for you, you're going to have a deep, rich color, and you're going to fully blossom as a human being, physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
All right.
But what should you take in? Well, the closest Western medicine is getting, or Western ideas is getting, is to understand that we're all unique through our genetics. Ayurveda understood this thousands of years ago and used this concept of constitution to describe the unique genetic makeup of each individual. And if you understand your constitution, then you will understand whether or not your body will thrive better on peas or carrots, whether it'll thrive better on meat or as a vegetarian, whether you should have spicy food or whether you should have bland food. Now, there are some fundamental basic ideas that are pretty universal, such as eating whole foods, making sure they're organic, making sure they're non-GMO. Of course, it makes complete sense. These what we would consider to be very basic ideas of good health is what most of the alternative world is pushing forward. But when you want to go even beyond that, into what's right for you, that means you have to understand your constitution. Will you thrive on green beans, or are they more likely to give you gas? Will you thrive on eggplant, or is it more likely to cause inflammation in your body? Ayurveda can predict that with remarkable accuracy. Remarkable accuracy. It can teach you what you thrive on. For instance, I do not thrive on tomato paste and tomato sauces. They're going to give me indigestion. They just are, because of my unique physiology. And I know about my physiology because I know my Ayurvedic constitution. So I should not have tomato paste. Now, some fresh sliced heirloom organic tomatoes that are whole, my body will digest that well, but not tomato paste, because they're different from an Ayurvedic perspective.
Sure, of course. Yes.
Same thing, the difference between grape juice and eating a few grapes. It's going to be different.
Now, because you are a graduate chiropractor, is there any manipulation of the body in Ayurvedic other than the yoga exercise that you might recommend? But is there any does manipulation of the spine, for example, something which obviously has a lot of value for many patients, not just for back pain, but for other things, does Ayurveda, have you incorporated that in Ayurveda now because, again, you're adding new science to it?
Ayurvedic medicine does not teach, as a science of Ayurvedic medicine, does not teach spinal manipulation as a part of the work that we do. That doesn't mean that a practitioner cross-trained in chiropractic might not integrate chiropractic with Ayurvedic medicine, just as a practitioner cross-trained in Western nutrition or even Western medicine. We have a lot of students that are Western medical doctors. That doesn't mean you can't integrate the different sets of knowledge that you have. But Ayurvedic medicine is a specific set of knowledge, and it's a way of relating to your environment through your five senses. There are therapies, there are therapeutic approaches involved. There are body therapy or body-centered therapy techniques that we utilize, such as Ayurvedic massage. There's low back pain treatment through an incredible treatment through what's called Katibasti, which is a dough that we mold onto the body, and it holds warm herbal oils. And we pour the warm oils into this basin that is on your body, and it sits there for about 20 minutes, and the herbal oils penetrate into the tissues of your body.
That sounds good, actually.
Creating incredibly deep relaxation. And the qualities of those herbs support the healing of the body. And I know a lot about back pain because I've gone through a considerable amount of it of my own. We haven't had time to talk about that part of my journey. But herniated discs, spinal fractures have all been a part of my history too. And I utilize Ayurveda and I utilize yoga and this special technique called Yoga Nidra to work with my body to rebuild my immune system. See, we live in a toxic environment, and I know you know that. I know many of your listeners know that. Ayurveda says, yes, we do. And it's not a matter of just trying to avoid toxins. It's about strengthening our ability to resist the toxins in our environment. And that's really where Ayurveda shines. It builds up your internal ability to prevent those toxins from destroying you. And that's how when I rebuilt my body, it's not that I made some unique change or I found a cure. I built up my immune system so that I was no longer so sensitive, so vulnerable. That's what had to take place. And it took years for me to do it, but I did do it.
I will say this. So because Ayurvedic wellness uses herbs, the herb turmeric, which is very popular now, in general, Ayurvedic practitioners helped to make that herb mainstream, did they not?
Yeah, Ayurveda has made so many things now mainstream.
But really, turmeric, which everyone uses, and really everyone happy with it. That's pretty mainstream now, as it should be. But really, the Ayurvedic guys kind of like took it out of nowhere, right, and made it important.
That's true. That's true. Turmeric is a wonderful herb. When you read the research studies about it, they're finding that it's beneficial in the treatment of a wide variety of cancers, both for treatment and for prevention.
Turmeric.
Turmeric,
Right,
just
turmeric,
simple
right.
turmeric.
It's
They,
amazing.
they do the studies on it, and they do them in vitro, and they take a look at what effect does it have upon a cancer cell. And when the cancer cells are exposed to the turmeric, more of them will self-destruct.
Mm-hmm.
Cancer cells are able to modulate their own life. And the problem with cancer cells is that they tend to live on and on and on and reproduce on and on and
Right.
on. But when you work with certain substances, such as turmeric, or when your body produces certain substances, because you have a healthy immune system, it'll trigger apoptosis. It'll trigger the ability of the cell to destroy itself. And that's really where...
What's the term for that again?
Apoptosis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cell death.
Cell death. Cell death. Programmed cell death. But that mechanism is broken in cancer cells. And so there are substances that can re-trigger that ability, and your body can produce those substances. Yes, turmeric does wonders. There are so many great, wondrous herbs and medicines.
By the way,
in
how should I
Ayurveda.
use? How can you recommend that I use turmeric? What should I do with it? Just put it in.
You know
cooking?
what? Turmeric is available now in capsules, and if an individual wanted to use turmeric, taking 1 to 3 capsules, anywhere from 1 to 3 times a day, depending upon what they're treating, would be a typical dose. But normally, when we use herbs, we have a pharmacy at our school. We have 200 raw herbs at our pharmacy.
Huh?
Every patient that comes to see us, when we make their medicines for them in the pharmacy, in the herbal pharmacy, we make them all individually. We make medicated oils, medicated ghee, which is clarified butter. We mix them together into combinations, and we cap them unique for each patient. You can work with individual herbs, and they can be helpful, but the science of Ayurveda is actually the art of combining them together properly.
Right.
And that has to be mixed for each person. You know what? Turmeric is not right for everybody. It's a wonderful herb, but we say in Ayurveda, nothing is right for everybody. Everything is right for someone. And Ayurveda is the knowledge to know what's right for you. I could hold up my turmeric product for you right now and say, hey, everybody should take this turmeric product. It will help you with your cancer, with your inflammation. It'll fight infections in your body.
Right.
And if I was really, really good at business, I'd make it into a multi-level marketing company. All right? But
that's one approach, yes.
Yes. But Ayurvedic medicine would say, you know what? Nothing is right for everyone, but everything is right for someone. And if you know what your constitution is, and you know how to understand the disturbance within your body, then Ayurveda will tell you what herbs, what diet, what colors, what aromas, what sounds are going to restore your normal physiology in your body. And that's what I go into in the book, Healing Your Life. In that book, you can learn what your constitution is. You can learn the nature of the imbalance. You can also learn what diet is right for you as a unique individual, what colors, what aromas, what sounds. All of that is there in Healing Your Life, Lessons on the Path of Ayurveda. So I tell my story a little bit because I want to inspire the readers, but it's really a self-healing book. It's a book for the public that I wrote in order to help them heal their lives.
Yeah, I think your book is very worthwhile. It's just gives you a lot of information in a nice, easy to read format. A lot of I'm happy to recommend your book. By the way, where can I buy a book besides at your clinic?
Well, you can buy this book at any bookstore. If they don't already carry it, they can order it. It's published through Lotus Press, so it's in full distribution. Of course, it's available in places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, Kindle versions. It's readily available.
Let me mention one other herb besides turmeric. So in Ayurvedic medicine, they call it Boswellian. Boswellia.
Boswellia.
But also people have known it historically as frankincense.
That's right. That's right.
And so Boswellia is actually very popular. When I realized frankincense and Boswellia were the same herb, I thought, oh, isn't that very interesting? So there's an herb that was really hot a couple thousand years ago, right? And frankincense is back as an herb. And people like frankincense. How would you recommend my listeners use frankincense?
Well, there was a company up in Sunnyvale, California that started doing some very, very high quality research on the herbs, and they're really responsible for their studies are responsible for creating a whole new wave of interest.
What company was that?
In it. You know what? The name of it is
Escapes right
escaping
now?
my mind. Yeah, they're located in Sunnyvale, California, and they were coming up with some patent blends that they were putting together, and they wanted to test it. And they tested them individually, and they tested them mixed together. One of them was turmeric that they put into the formula. One of them was Boswellia. And they were testing it for its anti-inflammatory properties. And what they found is that it does an excellent job controlling inflammation. While the research is a little distant from my memory, as I recall, it's a COX-2 inhibitor, which is very much similar to the way many of your non-steroidal anti-inflammatories work, except that it's a whole herbal product. There are many chemicals that are within any herbal product, and they all work by different pathways. And they're finding that the Boswellia is very, very good for that purposes. Of course, it has other uses as well besides being an anti-inflammatory, but it's a very good anti-inflammatory, and so is turmeric. And when you mix those together, that's a very good combination.
And the term anti-inflammatory means not only can it help, say, structural problems like arthritis, but that it could be theoretically helpful in problems with cancer, which is seen as an inflammatory health problem. Is that correct?
So many of the diseases in our body really are inflammation-based. Whether you're looking at autoimmune diseases, whether you're looking at a cancer,
What's an example of an autoimmune disease?
An autoimmune disease would be something like ulcerative colitis. It could be rheumatoid arthritis. Your thyroid conditions are usually caused by autoimmune disorders, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and so there's a wide variety of autoimmune disorders. And this is a condition where your body, for unknown reasons, begins to attack itself. It begins to produce antibodies to normal tissue in the body. And when it produces the antibody to a normal tissue in the body, that interaction between the antibody and the normal tissue creates inflammation. Sometimes that results in damage to those tissues in your body, and sometimes that damage results in carcinogenesis, the development of cancer. So by regulating inflammation in the body, that's a terrific thing. It's very important to do that for your long-term health, not just for the management of pain and the management of some of the tissue breakdown, but it's really an important part of preventing cancer as well. So you look at herbs like turmeric, and you look at herbs like Boswellia. Ginger was another one that was in that formula they were studying. You look at the anti-inflammatory effects that these herbs have, and of course you can extrapolate that out to its long-term benefits preventing cancer as well.
Well, this is actually very interesting, but let me just ask one more herb, which obviously comes from India. Neem, N-E-E-M, neem. Now, there's one that people seem to love for skin problems, for toothpaste, you name it. So, and that's definitely Ayurvedic. You guys have to get 100% credit for that one. And tell me, what does that do for me?
It's one of my favorite herbs, so I'm so glad you talked about that. Neem is a plant. It's a leaf, and the oil is captured as a essential, and it's mostly, well, you can use it as either the dried herb or you can use the essential oil. And it's sometimes diluted into other oils because it's very, very strong. So many properties to it. So I'll tell you a couple of my favorite uses of it. The first thing I like to do is I like to take the essential oil, and I put just a little bit on my finger, just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not a caustic essential oil that'll burn you if you touch a mucous membrane. Just put a little bit on my finger, and I touch the back of my tongue when I have a really bad sore throat. Within minutes, it'll spread from the back of your tongue all through your throat.
Really?
And it will not only numb the pain, it will destroy the microorganisms causing the pain. It is
just
remarkable.
Just a dot of neem oil.
Just a dot of neem oil on the very back of your thumb, and let it do the rest of the work. It's got to be the pure essential neem oil, not the diluted neem oils that you'll sometimes find in topical skin products. And the reason it's diluted is because the stuff smells very, very intense, and it tastes extremely bitter. And I love it because it's really right for my body. I love it. So I don't mind that bitter taste, but many people will. But it is a remarkable medicine. It's a remarkable medicine. Now, it's also used on the body for eczema. It's used for psoriasis. Because
topically?
Topically, yep. for eczema and psoriasis. Now, for psoriasis, the treatment is more complex because psoriasis typically is an autoimmune disorder. And so you have to work with the immune system. It's a skin problem, but it has its dysfunction within the immune system. So you need to take herbs internally in order to normalize the functioning of the immune system. But it will diminish the rash, which is great.
Mark Halpern, I have a question for you. For the listeners on my show who've heard you mention neem is great for sore throat, and then you said it's also good for eczema. Now, many of us are so used to taking a medication that does X. We know this medication does X. So why is that you tell me that the herb, we're talking about neem now or boswellia, or why is it that the herbs does so many different things?
The herb does so many different things because when you produce a drug, you first take a look at an herb and you try to find what's called the active ingredient, the chemical molecule that'll have the action you're looking for. And you discard the rest of the product. Then you manufacture that chemical and you mass produce it and you sell it for a particular effect on the body. Sometimes that chemical will have just one effect, but actually even that chemical has many effects, okay? Now, when you take an herb, though, the herb has hundreds, if not thousands, of chemicals in there. And therefore, you're having multiple effects. Now, here's where you get into philosophy. We believe that nature works with the plants in order to create synergy between its many different chemicals, so that a plant is much safer than a drug. When you process the active ingredient, turn it into a drug, and take it away from the rest of the chemicals that are in there, you are at much higher risk of side effects. Whereas when it's used as part of the formula that the plant is in and of itself, it's already a formula, that there are ingredients in there to mitigate the side effects. And that's why when you study a plant, it's difficult because it has so many different chemical components to it.
This statement you just made about the difference between the medication, a specific isolated constituent part, and an herb. So does that enjoy mainstream acceptance, that thinking?
Well, that thinking does. Absolutely it does. The pharmaceutical company will tell you that's precisely why they want to take the active ingredient only, because they don't know what the rest of the herb is going to do.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And the medical community will tell you the same thing. I don't think you should take that herb because it has too many component parts to it, and we can't understand it. And what we don't understand and what we can't control, we don't want you to take it, because there might be something in there that could harm you or interfere with some other bodily process, and I don't know. So therefore, the medical doctors and the pharmaceutical community prefer to work with individual molecules. But it is a mainstream understanding that the herb has all of these different components to it. Sometimes, and this is where you have to really, you have to know your herbs and you have to be an herbalist. Sometimes all those chemicals working together do magical things for your body. Other times there are toxins in herbs. And therefore, an herbalist has to know what herbs don't you give to people, because there are toxins in there too.
Sure.
And so it's all part of the science. Ayurveda is a science. You have to study for 2, 3, 4 years to really become proficient as a practitioner. And then it takes, of course, years and years and years of practice, right, as a practitioner. So it's like any other science. You have to know your knowledge.
Mark Halpern, this has been remarkable. How can my listeners contact you?
Okay. The best way to contact me is by email. DRH, David Robert Henry, or Dr. H, DRH, at ayurvedacollege.com, AYURV as in Victor, ED as in David, A, college, COLLEGE.com. Email me. I'm very good about responding to emails. You can also just Google Mark Halpern, Ayurveda, or you can Google the California College of Ayurveda. Will certainly come up, and you'll be able to contact me.
Well, Mark Halpern, thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. You've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
American Heart Association's Heart Walk is coming. Bring your family, bring your friends, bring your coworkers. Help yourself and those around you to live longer, healthier lives. Form a team today and walk to help the American Heart Association defeat heart disease and stroke, two of the nation's leading killers. For more information, visit heartwalk.org.
Hey everyone, this is Richard Carr, Business Relations Manager for LA Talk Live. Did you know social media produces almost double the marketing leads of trade shows, telemarketing, direct mail, or even pay-per-click ads? And that about 46% of all online users count on social media when making that ever-important purchase decision. Hey, if you feel lost when it comes to social media, Top Tier Media can help you. Top Tier Media specializes in social media management and blogger outreach for beauty, fashion, health, and lifestyle brands. To learn more, go to www.toptiermedia.com. That's www.toptiermedia.com. Top Tier Media, the official social media marketing company of LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network.
Hi, I'm Jerry Bell of the Daz Band in New Birth.
And I'm Brahima Arsalan.
Inviting you to join us every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Time for Jerry Bell's R&B Soul Classics, baby.
Join us as we play some of the greatest hits of soul and R&B and listen in to interesting discussions with the legends of the music.
So don't you forget, join us on the Jerry Bell's R&B Soul Classics. You'll love it. Exclusively on latalklive.com.
You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio.
Or watch us and listen directly at latalklive.com, baby.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure.
This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk, baby. We are music.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My next guest is working with a new technology called e-cigarettes. E-cigarettes seem to have come out of the blue just a very few years ago, and now everyone knows about them. And my next guest, Mark Burton, works with that e-cigarette. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And since it's a brand new topic, and maybe many of my listeners really have no idea what e-cigarettes are, what are they?
All right. An electronic cigarette is a device that provides nicotine and flavor to someone that we hope will become an ex-smoker or is an ex-smoker. And it has proven to be very, very efficient in aiding people to quit smoking.
Well, that seems very positive.
It absolutely is. Right now, we're looking at about 4 million e-cigarette users in the U.S., which we call vapors. People who use e-cigarettes are called vapors. About 1.3 million in Britain, and about somewhere between 4 and 7 million in Europe. And we're expecting those numbers to double by next year.
And how new a technology is this? Where does this come from?
It was discovered around 2007 by a Chinese pharmacist. His brother had just passed away from lung cancer, and he decided he needed to do something as a smoker himself to change his lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And he created the electronic cigarette, and it very quickly moved through Asia into the U.S. and Europe.
Oh, so originally a Chinese invention,
yes,
but very quickly came to the United States.
Yes.
Yes. And so many people know that e-cigarettes are indeed used to quit smoking. I do have a question. So since it's such a new technology, is there any kind of United States government regulation on the use of e-cigarettes or the manufacture of e-cigarettes?
Your timing is excellent. Right now, the FDA is looking at potential what we call deeming regulations to see how they're going to regulate electronic cigarettes. Right now, they come under straight consumer goods, and we believe they probably should remain there. We don't make any claims, or I should say that the industry doesn't make any claims as to these being a smoking cessation product.
I see. So it's not a medical device.
It is not a medical device.
Okay.
It happens to be effective in that manner, but it's not a medical device. Very importantly, today in Brussels, they made the decision not to regulate it throughout the EU as a medical device. They've decided
Today, literally?
Today, came down this morning.
Good timing.
Absolutely.
Good timing.
They're going to regulate it similar to tobacco products, but not quite as harshly, we hope.
And this was the European Union decision.
This is the European Union.
Let me have the decision once again, please.
The decision was not to regulate electronic cigarettes as a medicine or medical device, but rather to keep it as a consumer product similar to tobacco.
And that seems fair to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If they were to regulate this as a medical device, either here or in Europe, it would eliminate almost all of the small to mid-sized businesses. That would really leave only those who could go through the what's called the FDA process. And that's going to be far too expensive and time-consuming for almost every electronic cigarette business out there.
I see. And electronic cigarettes, so since I have no idea quite what they are, so how do I use them?
May I pull one out?
Yeah, sure. Let me see. Yeah, take a look.
This is one.
Are we catching this? Are we catching this on? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
This is probably the most basic. Now, one of the misconceptions that people have out there is that an electronic cigarette always looks like a cigarette.
Uh-huh.
And there certainly are quite a few of those out there. I call them cigalikes. They are typically disposable. These, in my opinion, tend to be a bit more effective. They are longer lasting, and they have more fluid, so that you can enjoy it for more hours as you would a cigarette. The way this one works is it's got a battery inside of here. I press this button.
It certainly looks modern. I have no idea quite what it is, but it looks modern. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
You'll notice I have a cool little tip there.
Yes.
But ultimately, the fluid moves up through the wicks into what we call an atomizer. When you press this, the atomizer heats up some and turns this basically flavored fluid into vapor. And when I exhale, you have water vapor.
I see.
So.
And may I ask, what does that retail for, roughly?
This actually retailed for about $25. This is about $5, and the juice typically goes for anywhere from 30 cents to 75, 80 cents per milligram.
And I can buy this like at a grocery store, is that it?
No, this you couldn't buy at a grocery store. This you would have to buy at a dedicated electronic cigarette store or online.
Oh, I see. Oh, so at this point, so it's like in the state of California right now, I can't buy this retail.
No. Forgive me. There are retail outlets. Now, this particular one.
Oh, yes. I'm just talking about. Oh, yes.
Electronic cigarettes in general. Yeah, you can buy them anywhere. You can see the disposables at 7-Eleven.
7-Eleven has them.
7-Eleven has them. Two stores that come to mind that are dedicated to selling these are the Vapor Spot over on Westwood, Natural Vapes over in Santa Monica. What I personally like about having someone who's never done this before go to one of these stores is that they're going to get a little bit of training on how to really operate this.
Probably a good idea, yeah.
I would say so, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, and so if a person's a cigarette smoker and they start using e-cigarettes, what happens? They have less interest in smoking? Is that it? They just kind of...
As a matter of fact, in many cases, they'll give it up altogether. Now, I was actually a fairly typical case. I'm going to give my own little history here.
Sure.
I had a heart attack about 1.25 years ago.
Oh, my.
And when I got out of the hospital, the doctors were very clear with me. 3 things were attributed to the heart attack. Genetics, for which I could do nothing about.
Right.
Stress, which I took a lot of the normal activities. And smoking. I was a 2-pack-a-day smoker.
And may I ask, how long have you been smoking 2 packs a day?
About 30 years.
And certainly in your own mind, smoking 2 packs a day has to be a major contributing factor, right?
Yes.
And you're a pretty young guy too, so.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So you just did that. You stopped.
Pretty much, yeah. You know, obviously they wouldn't let me smoke in the hospital. When I got out, what was the first thing I wanted to have? Cigarettes. And my family spoke, shall we say, strongly to me about this.
Well, that was good. Good for you.
My mom threatened me with a cane, actually.
Well, good.
That was appropriate.
Yes, I think so too. Yes, it's very fair. A little bit of loving nagging, so to speak. It's kind of a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I ended up going. Two very important things happened to me. I went over to one of these dedicated retail locations, and they showed me how to use this. And the second thing was, as I began to use this and have problems, I found an online community called The Vapors Den. The Vapors Den.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're a wonderful group of people who are aimed at getting people off of cigarettes and helping you understand how to use these various devices, because they do come in a lot of different ways, and you can get some complications. The result is I have not had a cigarette since my heart attack, and personally I've gotten 17 other people off of smoking using these.
Oh, good for you.
Now that
Nice.
it's been great. It also led me to look at the electronic cigarette industry from a business point of view. It became very important to me to make sure this was a sustainable industry.
And do you think it is?
Very much so.
You're an attorney.
I'm an attorney by background. I'm actually the consulting arm of an investment bank. So my job is to help companies grow and occasionally transition. And I believe that we're the first consulting firm and investment bank to actually enter the space with the active idea of working with the owners of these businesses to help them spread their message, gain their vision, and create a sustainable business.
And so therefore, from your perspective as a business person, you really think this is going to be big?
Not only me. Goldman Sachs called it one of the 8 most disruptive technologies of this year.
Oh, very nice.
And they estimate...
When Goldman Sachs speaks, people listen.
Exactly.
That's right.
To throw out another one, Wells Fargo believes that electronic cigarettes will represent a substantial portion, and the percentage just escaped my mind, but a substantial portion of both, let's call it tobacco type, and I don't want to say tobacco, it's a very bad word these days, but let's say tobacco type of revenues and profits within 20 years. This may very well outsell tobacco products within 30 years.
Aha. So people, when Goldman Sachs, obviously they enjoy a great reputation because they've been right much of the time. Can't be right all the time, but they've been right much of the time as far as making their clients money. So they really feel that this is going to be important.
Absolutely.
And so therefore also, they also feel that tobacco will continue its decline?
Not only will it continue to decline, this is going to actively force that decline. I believe it was Morgan Stanley last year attributed a 1% loss of revenues to tobacco to electronic cigarettes. 1% doesn't sound like a lot.
No, that's big. Yeah, it's big.
That's 1.5 billion cigarettes that didn't go into circulation, and we think that's fantastic.
Okay, now, what's the potential downside to the e-cigarette? For example, if I'm going to put a solution of the material into my dispenser here, what if I use too much of the solution, of the nicotine solution that goes in there?
My first suggestion is anybody who hasn't been kind of trained into putting this together, and it's easy training, should not be making their own stuff. That would be bad. You certainly can poison yourself with too much nicotine, but you have to put an awful lot in to really hit that. Okay. Nicotine has been demonized to a large degree.
All right. Now, on this product, this is one way in which I can use e-cigarettes. But you tell me I can just go to 7-Eleven and buy something different that's already prepared? I don't have to prepare it myself? Is that it?
That's right. It literally looks typically like a cigarette, and all you've got to do is inhale on it. The downside is you're not going to have as much time with it. It'll last a couple of hours maybe. A few of them are rechargeable. Most of them you're going to throw away. You also have a limited amount of flavors, and flavors do become very, very important to vapors. As we get our taste buds back from quitting smoking, a lot of us don't want to go back to tasting the tobacco flavor. So we get into other flavors and enjoy it.
Now, again, you did mention on air that you'd have been a 2-pack-a-day guy.
Yes.
For like how long?
30 years.
Okay. Now, And you quit about how long ago, tobacco?
July 15th of 2012.
Now, would you say that your sense of taste is much better now than it was?
100%.
And if someone had told you that 2 or 3 years ago, would you have thought maybe, oh, you're picking on me, you're kind of needling me? And would you have believed them? No.
No.
No. But your sense of taste is better. Is your sense of smell better?
Yes.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, when I smell a cigarette now, let's just say I find it offensive.
Right. And when you first started to find it offensive, did that catch you by surprise?
Complete shock. My mom says she saw my face, and it looked something like this. I was absolutely stunned by what I was smelling and trying to figure out how all of my friends and family had put up with me for 30 years. Now, that being said, I don't consider myself a rabid anti-smoker. I understand where they're coming from.
Right.
I know very well that repeatedly telling you don't smoke is going to do nothing.
Right.
So instead what you do is you encourage it. As a matter of fact, that the Vapors Den taught me a great slogan, which is, it's not the cigarettes you have that matter, it's the cigarettes you don't have.
Oh, that's nice.
It's positive reinforcement,
right.
and it's very true.
Right. Now, on these e-cigarettes then, so we feel that the future is bright for these.
Yes.
And how can my listeners contact you, as you seem to be the point man for the profession?
I hope so. They can email me at S as in Sam, B, at SureGrowth, spelled SHURGROWTH.com. And if any of you are, and I suspect many are not smokers given the topic, but if any of them are smokers, I would encourage them also to go to that forum and learn how they can quit smoking.
What forum is that again?
It's The Vapors Den, TheVapersDen.com.
Well, Mark, thank you very much. It's very interesting, and it's obviously an important topic, and I appreciate you being on my show.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. You've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. I'd like to thank you for tuning in, and I hope you join us next week.
We would love to thank our guest, Dr. Hans Kugler, Mr. Kyle Mundy with soulfood.com, Ms. Catlin Walter with Khalifa Farms, Dr. Mark Helper with Healing Your Life, and once again, Mr. Mark Helper with California College of Ayurveda, and of course, Mark Burden with e-cigarettes. Thank you all very much for your support. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and the whole nine. Stay tuned for the Sabir Bay Show coming up in about 30 minutes.
Hi, I'm Jerry Bell of the Daz Band in New Birth.
And I'm Brahima Arsalan.
Inviting you to join us every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Time for Jerry Bell's R&B Soul